hard truths, debates, and elevated conversations. The Situation Room. Witty, political, engaging, deep, controversial. In the room, we have C.T. Muga, researcher, academic, seasoned political observer, a fountain of wisdom in these politically uncertain times. Ndu Oko, Nigerian by birth, Kenyan by choice, communications expert, Pan-Africanist, a truth seeker and believer in people power, and Eric Latif, agent provocateur, the man in the chair, seasoned journalist.
How are you doing? It's the middle of the month. Did you know that? It's the middle of the month. This is the Situation Room on this 15th day of September 2020. Welcome to the show. Nduoko, how are you?
I'm fine. How you day?
I did, Jerry.
You day, Jerry. Body day inside clothes. Well done.
How's your clothes?
Clothes day. Cloth day on top body.
Clothes
You just
day
said
on top body.
with a lot of seriousness. Ndu.
Yes.
And do you?
I myself,
You're
personally,
even well.
yes, even I am doing well. But to explain it further, I'm splendid.
Wow. Okay.
I should have asked. You, how are you?
Actually, you know, Eric, what comes to mind is something that should we say it makes the English language interesting? It's here I am trying to explain to you using the enormity of my word power to explain that I was looking for you, but I could not find you. I was finding you, but then I was not finding
I
you.
was not finding you.
So,
So you didn't find me.
Didn't find at all. Finding.
yes, that tells you how long I looked. That,
Please deal with that AC. It's cold.
It's cold, huh?
Hey.
Really, son, huh?
No, didn't sign up for this.
No, not today.
No, wait. Surely. Can't even touch the table, the desk.
Desiccant letter sheet, huh?
It's just cold. Welcome to the show on this beautiful Tuesday morning. We'll have a lot to discuss today, of course. We will look at the progress in the gender agenda. And then we'll look at political alignments and realignments of politicians in
The season is with us.
this tough season. Tumeanzia.
Yes.
Tumeanza hapo.
Will we at least take a peek at the law? Because there's this lovely law that was introduced that was supposed to curtail party hopping. As not party as in party hanging, good time drinking. No. Political
Party hopping.
Yes.
Which many could say is more or less the same thing.
There is that little detail indeed.
There's that detail.
Yes, there's that detail.
What does the law say? Anyway, we'll talk about that.
We'll talk about that.
Tell us about the law. Then let's begin where we always begin.
In these times of COVID-19, it looks like it might be good news. Schools might be opened, looking at the fact that less and less cases on a daily basis are being reported. But we'll look at that news story in a while. But there will be a grand meeting next week of all stakeholders to tell us about the opening up of the economy in the face of COVID-19, or the opening up of the country, rather. No.
Country.
Yes. The Ministry of Health, in association with several other ministries, will be having this high-level meeting next week. The sector, as education, is meant to present a report.
You who understand the English language well, I was waiting for in conjunction.
You were waiting for in conjunction?
Yes.
I can throw in an in conjunction there if you like.
In partnership with.
With
Right.
the conjunction.
So there will be this
conjunction.
high-level,
Collaboration.
high-flying orgas at the top meeting next week. So everybody's supposed to bring in their feedback in terms of what they need to do, or maybe. So anyway, we'll look at that school story. But let's look at the numbers in Africa vis-a-vis the rest of the world. 1,353,656 cases so far on the continent, against 29,200,000 24,309 cases in the world. 32,000 deaths in Africa. 925,644 in the world. 1 million recovered cases out of the 1.3 million on the continent, vis-a-vis 20,891,524 recovered cases around the world. Okay, so cases still continue to soar in the US. It was interesting because we listened to President Donald Trump yesterday, a couple of days ago, and he said, you know what, I don't understand what the big deal is about this COVID. We wanted a room for our rally, and this guy was kind enough to give us this big room. People are packed in the room like sardines. The infectious diseases centers are telling the rest of America, we really need to be careful about the spread of COVID. Donald Trump in one ear, out the other. Only 50 days to the next election. So he's not taking any chances. COVID be damned. That's
Is
your
it
problem.
possible that he knows something that the rest of us don't?
They don't know. Because the way in which he's speaking with such bravado, and he's not without any caution whatsoever when it comes to COVID. It's not an issue. There are other things that need to be dealt with.
Again, sorry for the many questions this morning, but is it really bravado?
Oh, I mean, did you see him? He was in fine form yesterday.
But he tends to be in fine fettle half the time.
Oh, no. Yesterday was actually one for the books. Yeah.
And what did he say?
He said, we wanted a room where we could have this meeting. Nobody was going to give us this. COVID is not an issue when it comes to the national issues that we are dealing with right now.
Right.
In terms of bringing in a new meaning Trump 2.0 political dispensation, COVID pales in light of this.
That's his view.
This guy who understands has given us this room, and that's why we're able to have this meeting. Any of you feel sick in here? No.
Okay.
What's the problem?
Right.
On the other hand, what are the Democrats doing? Are they holding meetings? Are they only campaigning online? Are they observing social distance?
No. Nobody's observing social distance.
So
it's not a Trump issue.
It isn't a Trump issue. What about the Communist Party of America? What are they doing?
What are they up to?
Why do we focus on only these two parties, and we know very well that America has
There
a
are
party?
many.
Yes. Not as many as us, but there are many.
In the light of all of that, the United States still has 6,749,289 cases and are teeter-tottering on the brink of 200,000 deaths. India now 4,926,914 cases with 80,808 deaths. Now,
Again,
the second
India, how
in
many
the world.
deaths?
80,000.
America, how many deaths?
199.
Okay.
India population?
India's population is 1.3 billion.
America's population?
333 million. 31 million.
So there are more than 1,100,000,000 more. Well,
Yes.
a billion.
America is like a quarter.
No, they have a whole
A quarter and a bit.
Billion.
1.1 billion more people than the United States.
And the numbers are less.
Yeah, for sure, they're less.
Deaths infected, less. China?
Well under half. Okay, so if you look at China, you have to go down the list to look for China because they're doing pretty well. China with 1.4 billion people has 86,000 cases and 5,846 deaths.
Population of India again?
1.3 billion.
Yeah, they've caught up with China.
They've caught up with China. They've surpassed China, actually.
They've caught up.
Remember, they have 1 million cases. Remember they have...
You're saying they've caught up with them in
They
terms of
passed
what?
China a long time ago. They've
No,
got 4
it's
million cases.
population I'm thinking of.
Oh,
Yeah, 'cause
no,
I think-
they're still
They're still about 100 million less than China.
Yeah,
Yeah.
if we're in the billions.
they're Ethiopia less than China.
A whole country. However, the cases in India, incomparable to China, all right? We're looking at 86,000 cases in China. And when we saw those numbers coming out of China, it was huge, right? The world was eyeballs popping out. India has 4 million, almost 5 million cases now. India's deaths are equal to the number of positive cases in China. Yeah.
Okay.
Imagine.
So that's what we're looking at.
Imagine.
And Europe, how are they doing?
Who?
Europe.
Okay,
as
well,
in-
it depends on what we're looking at.
okay. Where in Europe do you have the sort of eyebrow raising numbers
Well,
in terms of
Still
infections.
remains
it's
Spain.
still in
isn't it?
Spain. It's still in Spain with the high numbers now nearing 600,000 and then almost at 30,000 deaths. France was doing a little bit of a worrisome jig over the weekend, but those numbers seem to have stayed
Is it in
off.
the country or the specific parts of these countries where you find? Because what I've noticed with Europe, you'll find one area seem to be balanced, even reporting some wonderful numbers, and then you go to another one and the thing has shot through the roof completely.
Well, they were looking at the cases in Paris when they were recording this 10,500. It was in Paris and its suburbs. Okay, so it's clear that people have come back to work after the summer, and you find that most of course, between in the Paris metropolis, most people are coming in and then going out, right, for work. So that is where they recorded the highest number of cases just over a couple of days. I think just trends with how things work on a day-to-day basis is how you can see now the movement of COVID. Just if you look at what's happening, and there's a pandemic currently, and you look at the way in which people move at this time, it's only normal that you would see an increase.
Okay, now that we're going to be opening schools soon and the entire economy, what are the numbers like in Kenya?
Well, there were 46 cases yesterday in the country. Of course, we need to look at this
46
against
positive cases.
Yes. So, sorry, 48 new virus cases. We need to look that this is against the sample size, however, of 1,081. Okay? The day before, there were 188 cases against a sample size of 4,000. Total numbers now in Kenya, 36,205. 176 people were released yesterday. So yes, the numbers significantly less. If there was more testing being done, you could see a higher number. But again,
Positivity rate is
5%. 5% is what is being looked at now. And according to the World Health Organization,
so we've hit 5%
if you're at 5%,
for 2 weeks, is it?
yes, if you're at 5%, then it's okay for you to start opening up, which is, I guess, what is fueling these discussions that are taking place now.
And of course now Kenyans start saying, so suddenly we have started getting fewer cases of COVID.
Yes.
Suddenly. After we started questioning KEMSA and throwing the spotlight at
If you ask me, the cases that we're seeing now, the same kind of cases that you were seeing a month ago.
You know,
There's no difference.
You know what is particularly interesting is that even discussions that previously people thought were a little way out with regards to COVID are not as way out and as outlandish as may have been assumed.
No.
Because if you are, let's forget this story that we've heard of a, should we say, given the poor state of our public health system, given the incapacity that we have for God knows what else, despite all this, if we were to take the information that we had previously regarding COVID with all this in mind, my friend, by now we should be doing really genuinely badly.
Yep. Yep.
And India, which has larger areas with more people living in closer proximity to anything we can imagine, don't have that sort of problem either. It's not just Africa, either. So, what is it about the virus? And now, where the crux will become the crux, we are entering the cold season. This thing called winter is beckoning in that part of the world. And with winter comes flu. And flu has its issues which are very similar to COVID. And that is the reason why people at first thought this was just some other flu, an advanced model of flu. So I think even as we think that we've understood COVID, I think there's yet new understanding of COVID that is awaiting us.
This is true. And that, even when it's not so clear, should be the kind of information that is fueling decisions that are being made. Should be.
In which part of the world?
Anywhere.
Where?
Anywhere.
Here, for instance.
Or
So
even
like now for here, if we're opening schools and all.
Well, I mean, look at what has happened everywhere in the world where schools have opened.
The issue of opening schools in and of itself is really not the issue. Not really. When you want to open schools, discuss it alongside opening the economy and ask yourself, what have you done in order to ensure that when these two institutions are open, the economy is an institution, schools are institutions, that the utmost care and the utmost attention to safety will have been catered for.
taken.
What is it that has been done?
What is it that has been done anyway, even now with schools closed and the economy, quote unquote, closed in this country? Let's just be serious. Huh? Even with schools closed, there's absolutely no difference.
What has happened?
Because these kids are
What measures
playing.
have been
No,
taken?
people are just doing what they normally do.
People are doing everything that they do. It's just like schools are on holiday. Parents are moving out, coming back home in the evening. The children are playing in the neighborhood. I mean, there's absolutely nothing.
No masks, nothing.
Nothing at all. So, really. Anyway, we'll be looking at what this August at the top will be looking at in a couple of days' time, and the advice that they'll be giving on the reopening of the economy, so to speak. It's 6:15. This is a Situation Room, Kenya's biggest conversation. The live stream is up, www.spicefm.co.ke and Spice FM KE on YouTube, on Facebook, and on Twitter. Let's take a look at the weather, and then we will look at the main headlines today.
Classic soul, R&B, smooth jazz, neo soul, and nostalgic ballads.
Make some noise. Yeah!
You're listening to Spice FM. The weather with Spice FM.
15 degrees. We'll see it go to a high of 25 through the day and coming down to lows of 13. Taking a look into Nyeri. Light rain showers being experienced at 14 degrees, going to highs of 23 and lows of 13. Clear skies in Nakuru at 12, highs of 24 today and lows of 11. Clear skies in Eldoret at 12 degrees, highs of 21 and a chance of rain in the forecast, and lows of 11. Partly cloudy in Kisumu at 18 this morning, highs of 28. Looking into Kakamega, where it's likely to be a wet afternoon, highs of 26. It's currently partly cloudy at 15. Partly cloudy conditions in Mombasa at 24 degrees, highs of 24 and highs of 29 and lows of 23. It's partly cloudy in Malindi at 25, going to highs of 28 and lows of 24 today. It's partly cloudy in Kampala as well at 19. We're going to highs of 26 with rain showers expected throughout today. It's going to be a rainy day again in Dar es Salaam, going to highs of 31 and lows of 22. Currently partly cloudy conditions in the skies. Let's take a look in Joburg, where it's clear skies at 13 degrees. As the sun rises even higher, we go to a high of 24 and down to lows of 13. Lagos experiencing light rain showers, likely to be the order of the day well into Thursday. Highs of 29 and lows of 24. We'll take a look into London, where it's hazy this morning at 17 degrees. Not so clear skies. Going into partly cloudy conditions later with highs of 29 and lows of 17. We'll take a new look into Beijing this morning. Light rain showers at 21, going to highs of 22 and likely to be a wet day as they enter into monsoon season in that part of the world, with lows of 14. In Paris, it's clear skies at 19 degrees. It's going to be a warm day today with highs of 34 coming down to a low of 19. And finally, for now in New York, it's still Monday night. It's clear, however, at 18. We've got highs of 25 and lows of 13 today.
Mature, intelligent talk every morning. Spice up yourself. Mornings done right. 94.4 Spice FM.
All right,
Nairobi.
20 minutes after 6. Let's begin with today's proverb.
The fight of a grasshopper is the joy of a crow.
Vita vya panzi, furaha kwa kunguru.
Pansy is grasshopper in Swahili.
But if you have difficulty with the word,
No, I like it. I like it.
Good.
You want to give another word for
Grasshopper.
I like the way you shook your head. So we can understand it's a grasshopper.
That's it. Tilt it to the right, and then give a little twist, and then to the left.
It's a grasshopper.
Yes, grasshopper.
And ile locust ile
Ile locust ile unjue. Sio mdudu yule lakini.
sio nzige kwile. Sio nzige lakini ni grasshopper.
Just to clarify the matter so that it's easily understood.
Got it.
Okay, so let's look at the big headlines in the papers today. You want to start with the school story?
So, good news according to The Nation, and that's the front page. Back to school in no time. All right, so let's look at the details of this.
No time.
Education CS George Magoha shelves initial plans. What he said actually was that now that cases have reduced, let's perhaps look at changing the dates that we had initially talked about just a couple of weeks ago, right? Universities and colleges, however, have been cleared to recall students for on-campus learning, as the government also considers reopening schools before the end of the year. Magoha yesterday signaled that the initial proposal to reopen schools will be shelved as he gave the COVID-19 Education Emergency Response Committee 10 days to propose an earlier date, citing progress in the fight against coronavirus. Magoha directed the committee to formulate a new proposal that will be presented to the National Education Conference scheduled for next week. The CS, who spoke after a crisis meeting at the Kenya Institute of Curriculum Development, KICD, pegged the development on the decreasing COVID-19 cases that suggest the curve may be flattening. I called this meeting today, and I quote, to engage the task force and various education stakeholders on the process of drafting a new proposal to be presented before the larger national stakeholders conference that will be held on the 25th of September. It also emerged that he had given universities and technical and vocational institutions the go-ahead to recall learners. So, the meeting, which lasted over 3 hours, various proposals were presented, suggestions that schools and universities be reopened from next month. So it'll be interesting to see. But one important thing here is that, chaired by Sarah Ruto, they've been given a week to draw the proposals, or rather the protocols, for safe reopening and advise the ministry on measures that need to be taken. Last week, they talked about, all right, so they will be shelving children in certain grades, will go to school on certain days. Then the questions arose of what will happen then when, they're on break. Everybody just meshes or gets back into the bus together, whatever. So now these are the measures that they're saying. If we're going to open earlier, certain things need to be done to make this possible.
So they hadn't discussed that. I thought this is not the first time that I'm hearing the CS asking the experts to
go back and have a head,
If we were to reopen schools, whether we reopen in January, in April next year, or in October this year, what measures are going to be put in place?
It's never been clear.
Talking about that.
That's the thing. The measures, because this Sarah Ruto led committee, it's still the measures that we've been talking about forever. What? Because do you know what the measures are?
No.
Do you know what the measures are?
Measures for?
There you go. What are these measures? They've been saying measures,
we need face masks. Every child needs face masks. I remember the last time CS Magoha talking about at least 2 face masks per student.
And they even threw in an amount.
1 billion.
Just.
And then there are desks. Okay, well.
Ablution centers in all schools. Have they been done? Is there...
When we say schools, are we also opening up boarding schools?
Chai.
Okay, are they going to return the beds that they took?
The ones that's in...
They're not being
which
used
county
anyway.
was it? Bungoma?
No.
All counties.
Oh, believe me,
they took
it wasn't just
from
one county.
secondary school.
Yes,
Oh.
they did. They did.
Jamani.
Nyandarua County removed beds from John's Hospital, local
You're
hospital,
right.
because the CS was
Just to
coming
buffer
to
up
visit.
the stock, buffer.
Every time we're hearing about these measures, and the measures, from certain quarters, parents are saying, well, look, until these folks get this, their stuff in order, we're sending our children nowhere. We wait.
The thing is, every place on this planet where they've opened up schools, the story is the same.
Everywhere.
Same.
There's no exception, by the way.
None.
No exception. Because what I did yesterday, and I said, okay, let's look. Even in our, hallowed Sweden, when they opened schools,
Hey,
spike everywhere until everybody said stop. I read, yesterday when Nigeria is saying, okay, in the next couple of weeks, we'll only allow the highest level of grade school and then secondary school to go back. And even then they said,
In Tanzania, when they
we don't
reopened
know.
schools, was there a spike?
Do you know the numbers in Tanzania?
Wait, stop. wait.
Do you know what's happening in Tanzania with COVID?
No, but have you heard anything?
Did you even hear anything
spike?
about COVID
All
in
right.
Tanzania?
How long? First of all, did they close the schools?
Yeah, they closed the
All
school
right, for how
us
long?
about 2 or 3 months.
Okay, and
And then they reopened.
Yes.
After the prayers, they reopened. They reopened schools, they reopened sporting activities, they reopened everything.
The prayer has covered everything now. But it seems to be only in Tanzania where this prayer is.
Have you heard cases where, children are dying in Tanzania because of
Have you
COVID?
heard that cases have risen beyond 509 in Tanzania?
No.
What are you talking? So how are you even going to start using that now? Talk about schools being open
Because
there's
there's
still
just
only 500.
But
They're right here in the
Eric's
neighborhood.
point is a valid one because
what?
really,
They're right here in the neighborhood.
They're just over.
Yes.
if we're going to actually use any sort of comparative data, I think Tanzania would be a good spot to use for comparison.
Yeah.
Yes, because what they have done with regards to COVID is the complete opposite of what everybody else is doing.
Just not going to talk about it.
Just look at this country, for example. When the president announced the easing of measures, numbers started dropping. Is that not the opposite of what you're talking about?
Eric, what were they saying?
When was the last presidential address?
Almost 21 days ago.
All right. And what did he say at that time? Move curfew, only curfew, but allow
Well,
movement of people.
Do you know?
Allow.
Okay, alongside that
Allow
presidential
restaurants
address,
to open
Yeah.
for an extra
So
hour.
we saw the numbers just get to a certain point and then they plateaued.
well, you know something? It may not have been the intended purpose, but it feeds into the rumor mills that are spinning in certain parts of the country, and that is this. There was money, I mentioned it yesterday, that was required. So we had to present COVID.
Yeah.
Okay. Now that money has dried up,
There's no COVID.
COVID is also drying
I
up.
mean, 1 + 1
And
equals
then we haven't finished yet. We wanted some money from Global Fund. We're told, get lost. You're not getting
You're
money.
not
Now COVID is disappearing completely.
Yeah, no
So-
money, no COVID, no money. So in other words, no money, no
yeah,
COVID.
but you know something? It's tantamount to saying that COVID doesn't exist, and yet it does.
It does exist. The fact of the matter is that COVID does exist.
And COVID is dangerous.
yeah.
It is. That's the thing. With
And
all
if
of this
not
talk,
attended to, COVID kills. That is the reality.
and we're looking at a vulnerable set of individuals here when we're talking about children going back to school.
Remember, we've held this position here for the longest time. Just lock it down.
I'm not going to stop. It doesn't matter what you say.
All these
With all
stories
the-
about you open it up, do what.
It's not
No.
going to change anything in my mind.
No.
It's not changing anything in my mind.
Actually, I think I've changed.
Okay.
I'm at the
From-
point of from let's go the China route to, all right, I'm just observing what's happening. Just ensure that everybody is aware of the dangers of COVID and be prepared.
You know-
In the event you fall sick for COVID, then you know where to go.
You know, in an ideal setting, Eric, your thinking would be absolutely spot on. Because really, at the end of the day, in the absence of personal responsibility being taken by each and every individual, this fight against COVID is lost even from day one.
Yeah.
Why am I saying this? With reference to our country. We don't seem to have whatever it is you want to think of to ensure that we follow the example of China. China had the means to just say, excuse me, this is what we are going to do, and did it.
And they
The
did it.
means and the will.
That's why I said everything. Whether you want to call it will, whether you want to call it this, whether you want to call it the other, we don't seem to have it. This one is we don't have. So, if the individuals do not take this upon themselves to guarantee that their health is of utmost importance to themselves, with the basic requirements that are there, and then even with the then, you see, where the naysayers seem to be having a field day, the predicted negative, catastrophic outcomes are not being seen. In all honesty, they are not being seen.
No.
If I look at HIV, the reason why it was accepted is because people could see.
Let's see it. That's the thing.
You saw, you knew. People died in large numbers, people who were unwell in large numbers. You could have explained the way you wanted. In the end, they said, you know something? This must be HIV.
Yeah.
So, there was a period in time in this country, you couldn't afford this keep fit, lose weight thing. That's the last thing you wanted.
Can't be losing weight.
Couldn't just change.
No, you can't. Something must be wrong. Now, we have a situation here where COVID doesn't present those things. What it presents you with the things you're accustomed to. Cough.
Yeah, you cough. So you get malaria.
Throat. Feel like a truck ran over you. You feel out of sorts. We feel out of sorts all the time.
Yep.
If I'm broke, I feel out of sorts.
You can be sick.
Oh, no, absolutely. Bedridden. Okay. If it's very dry and there's lots of dust, you feel out of sorts. It gets really cold, you feel out of sorts.
Yeah.
Anyway.
Let's take a break. 6:30. Take a look at what's happening on the roads this early Tuesday morning and then look at other headlines in the papers. Good morning. This is the Situation Room, Kenya's biggest conversation.
Spice FM, Malindi.
Okay, traffic building up between Haile Selassie Avenue and Landis Road. Other routes flowing reasonably well. No incidents or accidents at this point, so that's a good thing. The stretch from Syokimau to Cabanas this morning is crazy. We know that the expressway is still being worked on, and it's going to be that way for some weeks, guys. So expect heightened levels of traffic, especially in these areas between Mombasa Road and Westlands. This is what we are likely to see. All right, looking at other parts of the city, for example, coming off Thika Road, not too much of an issue right now as you get into the CBD. All roads join there. At the Pangani Underpass, where there is still some construction taking place, we're likely to see heightened levels of traffic there as well. All right, not to forget, industrial area as a whole is going to be shut down from the 16th. So that's from tonight until, whenever they decide to open it. But it's going to be crazy. I'll give you more details of that as we go along. But just understanding that getting out of industrial area today is going to be something akin to a spectator sport. Told you in advance, guys. So let's see what it looks like in a short while. Spice FMKE, that's how you can get in touch with us. Let us know what you see in case we can help you out.
Spice up your life. Mature, intelligent talk every morning. Spice up yourself. Mornings done right.
So
94.4 Spice FM, Nairobi.
At the wheel of the late Safaricom CEO Bob Collymore. And just quick look at it. Basically, he says he had two wheels. One for his estate in Kenya and one for his estate outside Kenya. The estate in Kenya has been bequeathed to his wife, widow Wamboi, and it says that in the event that the widow does not succeed him, then his trusted friend, State House Chief of Staff, Zioka Waita, will be the trustee. Story done. That's it. That's the story. Crux of the story. But there's a story on page 2 of the Standard that talks about two sisters who are in a war with agents over 12 billion shillings land case. Now, this is one of those quite interesting stories to just read, and you, at some point you even get mixed up because there's one name here or another name here. So it's a story about a certain gentleman. Well, I want to start with the gentleman, because the gentleman is the one who owned this piece of land somewhere in Syokimau, and then says that the land was taken over. He had acquired this land in 1958, and the name was John Kadumba. The land was then seized by the Jomo Kenyatta International Airport without compensation. Mr. Kadumba died in 1989, leaving his widow, Beatrice Siokau Kadumba, and then Siokau started following for compensation for this piece of land. Siokau was abducted in 2010, held incommunicado. Her family only found her on her deathbed at the KNH in 2014.
Wow, okay.
She died. The two daughters, and those are now the ones, Litha and Amina Kadumba, pursued the matter with the help of lawyers and legal agents. This matter went to court. Matter went also to the National Land Commission, and the National Land Commission declared in 2019 that Litha and Amina were the legitimate owners of the land occupied by the airport, and they had proper claim to 50 acres of this land occupied by the airport, and they're therefore to be compensated. Now that's where the drama begins.
How much land had been occupied in the first place? Was it just the 50 acres or was it more?
They were claiming 60 acres, but the National Land Commission said, no. The actual piece of land that you claim is 50.
Okay.
So 50 acres land belongs to you. So this is where now issues come to a head. So the agents that had been appointed and the lawyers, the agreement was that these lawyers and the agents were to pursue this particular matter to its logical conclusion. And the logical conclusion here is get money. And they had agreed that we're not going to pay you a shilling. You'll only get paid if you win the case, and you'll get part of the proceeds. What was the agreed division? The sisters were to get 38.66% of the payout. The law firm was to get 25%. One agent, named Mwangi, was to get 23.33%. Another person who had the power of attorney was entitled to 9.1%. And Pius Kioko Moinde was to get 4%.
Wait a moment. Why were they getting 36% of their land?
Why were they getting 36%?
Only 36% of
the rest is now what they had negotiated with the lawyers. So
were they of sound mind when they negotiated this? Were their faculties sound? Were they disadvantaged in any way? Because this doesn't seem fair to me.
What? That they're getting
the bulk of the proceeds are going to other people.
Going to other people.
More than 50%.
No.
More than 60%.
No.
Is basically just going,
Elsewhere. Yeah.
Is going to other people.
Yes.
And so the argument was, those other people, this is what we're going to do. We're going to pursue the case on your behalf. Okay. This person who had gotten the power of attorney, now they have come up with a new lawyer, and the new lawyer is saying, now, you power of attorney revoked. You're the lawyer, your services revoked. You give me a bill for what you've done. Now there's a whole new clash.
It starts all again. These ladies are likely to lose a lot more money even through this now.
Maybe not. Maybe lose everything. It reminds me of ambulance chasing. Before people understood that there was something called a workman's compensation, you would find cases of someone who's been injured and legitimately is owed money. Come in the ambulance chasers. The first thing they do, and usually they're people who were employed in menial jobs. So if you gave this person even 10,000 shillings, my friend, they did not know how to do that 10,000 shillings because I'm talking about the 90s, you're talking about the 80s. This is someone who was earning probably 100 bob a day.
Right.
Okay. And what they would do is they'd keep giving this person money in bits and pieces. By the way, this is money that would be paid. There was no issue of it not being paid. It would be paid. And over a period of time. So it was a question of people getting to understand each other. Now, these are the cases are the ones which led to a law being passed in this country where in the case of someone being injured, 2 checks are issued by the insurance company. One directly to the individual and the other to the lawyer. Because the money would be paid directly to the law firm or to the lawyer. And lo and behold, the person who had been injured rarely saw what was even duly right. Now, someone who's never seen that amount of money, let's say his compensation is 200,000 shillings, does he even know?
He doesn't know. So even whatever you give him, he's going to be
enthralled. You give him 20,
enthralled with
he'll
that.
Even give you 5,000 but just thank you.
Meanwhile, you've taken 180.
Yes.
Yeah.
So I think this is...
It's a similar kind of thing that you feel here, right?
Yes. Because
that these agents, just because you are agents, you are lawyers. So the agents came up, the lawyers are the ones who followed up the matter with the National Land Commission. They had agreed that this is going to be our payment. And the bulk of the money, like you've said, the bulk of the proceeds from this case was going to
other people. Third parties. Yes.
Somebody getting 4%, I don't know, because they are 9% because power of attorney, 23% because you're agent, 25% because you are lawyer.
Man, there is a remuneration process.
25%, a quarter of 12 billion.
Pana.
A quarter of 12 billion.
Where?
3B.
It's not a small something.
Yes.
Okay. Now, see, we go to Tanzania.
Yes.
Tanzania is a good place to travel to.
Yeah?
COVID free.
Right. Magufuli stabs Kenya in fight for East African oil wealth. Tanzania, a latecomer in the pipeline deal, this is the subheadline, appears to have successfully courted Uganda to bag lucrative infrastructure project. After warding off stiff competition from Kenya for years over the building of a crude oil pipeline from Uganda, Tanzania has moved closer to clinching the deal. On Sunday, Tanzania and Uganda signed an agreement for the construction of a 378 billion shilling East Africa crude oil pipeline from Hoima in western Uganda to the port of Tanga, a move expected to breathe life into Tanzania's central corridor, which has been competing with Kenya's northern corridor. Uganda had initially planned to transport its oil through Kenya, which wanted a joint facility for the product from its own fields in Turkana County. But the signing of the agreement over the weekend at a meeting attended by Tanzania's President John Magufuli and Uganda's President Yoweri Museveni brings Dar es Salaam's coup against Kenya closer to success. Kenya, which has an estimated 560 million barrels of recoverable oil against Uganda's 1.6 billion barrels, had eyed the infrastructure as part of its grand plan to become a preferred regional petroleum transporter of choice, according to official documents.
Yes, what did we do wrong?
You didn't talk now.
There was a small matter of what happens in this country, and I keep talking about this all the time, our land tenure system. So for you to construct a pipeline all the way from the border with Uganda through Turkana, taking it to Lamu, you have to buy land. That entire stretch of land, right? That puts up the cost significantly. So that was one of the things that Sebo looked at and, now you people, you're going to tell me I'm going to spend all the money buying land.
Forget it.
For the pipeline.
But surely
Tanzania, on the other hand, is a bit different.
the land tenure understanding in that country is completely different. Yes. But let me ask the question.
And there was the issue also of the contractors.
And the cost of the
contractors.
Yes. You see, this issue of land, I think first visited us with the SGR, right? And unless I am mistaken, grossly so, a lot of the land that was under discussion, even in the SGR, was agricultural land at best. There is no major town between here and Mombasa. There are townlets, townships, okay? And the railway didn't pass right in the middle of those townships. It was on the outskirts, which, as I said,
so it wasn't commercial land.
it wasn't commercial land. Now, there's also something called compulsory land acquisition. Yes, okay? The point is, when your land is taken, it doesn't necessarily have to be paid for. You can be compensated by being given land elsewhere. Okay? I am not certain that every possible alternative was exhausted in this matter.
In this country, no, money.
It's the money.
Money is every possible alternative. All right? What?
What am I saying?
What are you talking
Where am I coming from?
Yeah.
Yes.
So you take my piece of land from Rongata Rongai, you go and give me some land where? In Chiokimau?
And it's not as though the two places are far away. No.
No. I want money.
Or you take me to Kajiado.
Give me money, I'll go and buy myself that piece of land.
Yes. Who told you I didn't? Even when I got this land, you think I didn't know where Syokimau was?
Well, so here it is. It's Uganda and Tanzania who are doing this dance.
They've signed it now.
Yes, and Kenya is watching from the bleachers.
I remember the president had said when this matter first came to light that Tanzania was getting into this deal with Uganda. The president said, okay, it's okay, tutajijengea pipeline yetu. It's okay,
Right.
we'll still do our pipeline.
So we still have an opportunity.
Now, our guys who are doing the oil exploration up north have slapped the government with a bill anyway. They have not been on site for a couple of months. They have
That's not their problem.
they have issues. The parent company has issues with money and management and their entire strategy. So here we are. Rent seekers once again ensure that we do not get a big project.
Unfortunately.
It is the rent seeking. So there's a gentleman called Cleopa Malala who wept.
Malala wept.
That's a headline in the Nation this morning. But let's take a quick break. We'll come back and look at what exactly is the Kakamega senator weeping about. Why are you crying? Why are you crying? Toto? It's quarter to 7. Good morning.
Mature, intelligent talk every morning. Spice up yourself. Mornings done right. 94.4 Spice FM, Nairobi.
He was arrested a couple of weeks back, right? And taken to Mumias to face charges. So yesterday he appeared before two committees of the Senate, and these the Justice, Legal Affairs and Human Rights Committee and the National Security, Defense and Foreign Relations Committee, with some serious allegations. And he tabled a letter from his lawyers called Malala and Company Advocates. He's alleging that a special unit within a special unit of the DCI has been set up, and they have one term of reference. Follow Malala and possibly eliminate Malala.
According to him.
According to him. He says that. He says he has it on good authority that these officers, in fact, the officers that have been deployed, he even gave some names of some people that he claims are DCI officers that have been deployed to pursue this particular matter to its logical conclusion. Logical conclusion here meaning that Malala out. And then it goes further to talk about, how these people, this team was set up. This team has been holding meetings, to strategize. They met at this one famous assassination headquarters.
Yes, this one hotel again.
One hotel that everyone who wants to assassinate anyone goes to and sits down and talks. They met at that hotel. They also met at several other facilities, including in Thika. Malala does not live in Thika.
Thika.
Yeah, they went to Thika. And he has it on good authority that some senior police officer is the one who was hosting them, was paying hefty bills because they were eating nyama, drinking, as they are planning this crack unit of elite assassins from the National Police Service were plotting his assassination.
All this because of him.
They were doing meetings to plot the assassination. These are police officers. Police officers receive orders. But here they were, doing a strategy meeting and
how
all.
we are going to eliminate.
And he was very dramatic in the Senate yesterday when he was speaking. He even shed a tear.
He did.
Saying, I have really, really talked about this in the past. I feel my life is in danger. I have gone to the Kakamega police and senior administration officials. I have requested for increased security. I have not received that. When I'm walking in the streets of Kakamega and I'm feeling like I'm going to die tomorrow, how do you think that feels?
Must be quite traumatizing, though.
Very, very traumatizing.
Hence, the outburst.
Hence the shedding
It is traumatizing, yes. But the director of
criminal investigations
would disagree with him on this matter. It is reported on page 12 of the Standard that he actually considers these threat claims to be fiction, a work of fiction.
Okay.
He says, those officers that you're saying, I don't know them. Because this statement even has, these are the weapons that they have, the serial number of the weapons that they have been assigned. These are the officers and they're...
How did you know?
Oh no, he could. It is not impossible.
In this country,
you would have found
it's
weapons
not
and found
impossible to
numbers.
have
in this
that
country,
information.
you compare someone, somebody made a
To
comment.
give you some information.
You compare someone and they'll give you information that SEAL Team 6 is on its way to come and pick you and take you somewhere in Belarus.
Wow.
Can
Well,
even tell you exactly where they'll take you
in Belarus.
in Belarus.
And we all know that when you get to Belarus, you will not come out.
No.
As in, you can't leave. The thing is, I would not want to diminish the reality that this
his
particular
fear.
gentleman is facing. But I would also like to mention that the one thing that we don't have a good history of, we've had incidences where people have disappeared and later died. But this business of large numbers of political leaders simply being killed, we actually don't have it.
It has never really happened. Of all the people who said there have been threats on their lives,
We've had people
been
dying.
We have, yes.
We've had people shot.
but assassinated because of their political stance.
Yes,
that has happened as well.
we've had it. But you cannot say that this is something that is common in the country. Not really.
No, it isn't.
That he has raised the issue is a good thing. He is not the first person to raise such an issue. Others have raised such issues. And most of these people are still alive.
True. Most of the people who've raised these alarm of assassination in the offing
Yes.
are still breathing
They're
today.
still alive. And one doesn't hear of those threats anymore. So one could perhaps argue that if indeed you feel or think or have knowledge that your life is under threat, the first thing to do is to talk about it, make it a public debate, thereby ensuring some degree of safety. Because it's remember the people who even said, if I die, blame so and so,
Yeah.
and so and so, and so and
I
so.
was with them.
However, I'm caught between these two sides. One, it's I do not want to downplay anybody saying that they feel like their life is in danger. All right? But at the same time, I do not want to sit somewhere where the political leaders of this country just wake up every new day and they claim that their life is in danger just because they are seeking publicity. And I'm sorry to say that I have that feeling that, this is what happens in the last number of cases that we've heard of people claiming that their lives are in danger. It is seeking publicity. We have seen a governor saying the same, not more than one governor saying this. We have seen
Senators.
senators, we've seen MPs saying this.
presidents.
Looking at this particular
Yes.
claim that is coming from Malala and his lawyers, what he presented before the Senate yesterday, where he's talking about a secret and specialized squad of special service unit has been recently formed with the express instructions to keep an eye on or eliminate the senator.
Why him?
That's what I'm seeing here.
Let's
Why
just
would
ask
it
the
be?
question
Why
now.
would it be you?
Why
Why is
him?
it?
What is this
What
thing
is
about
it
the
that
senator?
you have that they want to shut out or shut up? What is it?
What is so special about you?
Yeah. Or what kind of world-breaking, earth-shattering information do you have?
What have
that
you
they don't
done
want you to let
that
out?
you would consider to be a threat to the security of this
Of
nation,
the nation.
or to certain powerful individuals within the nation?
Yes.
That
You-
only you
You by yourself, you.
has
That would
perpetrated.
require
Yes.
the formation of a secret crack unit.
Within
Now,
another
remember,
unit.
we're talking about the members of the SSU are not just any other,
It's not just any other
ordinary
cop.
police officers.
No.
This is the special service unit that was established after the disbandment of Flying Squad and
Flying
all the
Squad,
others,
yeah.
right? So these are serious officers whose to-do list is fighting crime. They have a serious to-do list. Like, we know we are looking for so-and-so, so-and-so, so-and-so. We have information that this person was involved in this serious crime. They're involved in, plotting against the country. They're involved in terrorism, all those things. And then now we add, no. In fact, let me take 5 officers from you and form a crack unit so they can track and eliminate a senator. What is it about you that you think elevates you to that, because this is elevating you to that position where you are a serious threat to the state or serious threat to senior officers in the state who would authorize the formation of such a squad? What is
Not
it
just
about
to
you?
keep you quiet, but essentially to off you.
And then
disappear
you go and take up the sitting and the time of these 2 serious committees of the Senate. That they summon the Inspector General of Police, they summon the DCI, they come in here, and you're still continuing this particular conversation. Why? At some point, I think we need to draw a line. And if you come up with allegations and you're not able to substantiate those allegations, then
And
some
even you
action should be taken
taken
against
against
you.
you, absolutely.
In this particular case, you're going up to the extent of saying these are the officers. We have used Sergeant Kiprop, alias Rop, Benedict B, alias B, Ahmed Chimitei,
Alias Jim Tay.
David Kuteha Ingutia, Silvanus Njeru, alias, right?
I know.
And then you're even talking about the vehicle that they've been given. And you're saying, the squad of police assassins assigned to eliminate me has been given a Total petrol fuel card for use during the operation to track down and eliminate the Honorable Cleophas Malala.
Those are a lot of details.
And these are the vehicles that they're using. And then you say, also, we have information that the following 2 officers have their regular Seska pistols recalled. This is the Elias B guy and the Abanas Chemutei. And they've been given this new semi-automatic lethal rifles known as the Scorpion, which is manufactured in Israel and Yugoslavia. The Scorpion is a high-caliber semi-automatic rifle with 20 rounds of ammunition, as opposed to the Seska pistols, 15 rounds. It is not secret that the Scorpion gun is the weapon of choice for hired assassins and other rogues, as it has the following obvious and known advantages. We're even going to list why this particular gun would be used.
Yeah, for you.
1, because it can be broken into pieces, which can easily be assembled. 2, it can be discreetly carried around.
By the way,
3,
you can do that
it
with
can
all
carry
guns.
larger magazines of 20 rounds. 4, it can shoot with accuracy from 800 meters as compared to 200 meters of the Seska pistol. 5, it has the capacity to function with attached silencer. 6, it comes with shooting lenses for accuracy of hitting
All
the
this one to
targets.
off you.
10. This is
Like,
a
leave
crack
that thing, Joe.
police unit of assassins that have been given this particular.
By the
To
way,
disappear
the thing
Malala.
that I find strange, these crack units don't go around advertising what they want to do.
No, that's what I was going to say. Omo, if they were going to off
Plus,
you,
How
they
will
would
they
off
catch
units-
any
you.
criminal?
Do crack units only have Seska pistols?
I don't know anything about guns, okay? Pistol, I know is the one
can
which
imagine
is often
if-
called a
if- if-
handgun.
if you look at
and then
all
there's
these-
one called rifle, the long one.
And then G3.
G3 is also long. So the one for killing elephants, and which I think has 1 bullet. Now, beyond that,
You don't know.
I'm sorry, can fire 1 bullet at a time.
Okay.
I actually have no knowledge of guns, so I can't even comment. But what I do know is this. There is too much information on this matter, and that is what raises the question.
A lot of
You have too
when
much
you
detail.
have when you have an elite squad like this, for example, they don't operate with their details out there. Okay, they don't. That is clear. So for you to have all this detail and all this information, I mean,
Regular
you're
police,
making
you
a
don't have
circus out of
details
it.
about regular people.
Yeah, now
who
you can
meet every
imagine
day
a
to talk
special
to.
unit
These are
within
people,
a special unit.
and you may not even know who they are,
You don't
whether
even
they're in
know
that
who they
unit.
are.
And then all of a sudden, and then you even point to someone. You said there's an NIC officer. You even go, hey,
Secondly, if they wanted to get rid of you, my friend, you wouldn't know. You wouldn't know. All this detail that you have, you would
know
not
the
be
question?
aware.
of significance, why him?
Exactly.
a
That's the
big
question.
I've been waiting to hear him say they want to get rid of me because
Because
I've
I
done
have
I have
information.
this.
Or I was in the company of such and
They
such
do not
when
want
such
me
was
to
happening.
come and say,
I have
or to-
not heard. Because usually that's what people will claim.
Yeah.
He'll be
You have
alright.
information that is seriously going to undermine somebody.
And that is the reason why they want to get rid of you.
Yeah. For somebody to, for a crack unit to be formed within a crack unit in the DCI, this is high up. Very high up.
And then you know about it.
And you even know about it. You have
Perhaps
the
with
details.
time,
You even have the
the-
Total petrol card.
Yes.
Can
Perhaps
you even
at
tell
the
us how
time,
often they're
the good
fitted?
senator will actually give us information and tell us, or maybe furnish us the details that we ask.
What I am saying is, if he doesn't, I think it's about time that action starts being taken on these people. Such people who come out and say, this and go into such detail. I think this matter should be properly investigated. Maybe by a separate crack unit that is independent.
We are back to the crack unit, are we?
They investigate this. If indeed there is a plot against the senator, action should be taken against the National Police Service. And if there is no evidence that there is a plot against the senator, action should be taken against the person who is making these allegations and going into such great detail. This is a Situation Room. It's Kenya's biggest conversation. Keep it right here. In the next hour, we are looking at the gender parity. Is this unachievable in this Republic of Kenya? We'll be speaking to a commissioner with the National Gender and Equality Commission. Also, we will be live on KTN Home for the next 2 hours. So from 7 to 8, we'll be speaking to Priscilla Nyokabi of the Gender and Equality Commission. The issue is gender and equality. How far are we? Are we anywhere close? Good morning. It's now 7 o'clock.
Sugar and spice and everything nice. Spice FM.
Spice up your life. Traffic.
Okay, there's traffic all the way from the Thika Road Mall on the Thika Superhighway today. Probably an accident. Can't see what's ahead, but that has slowed down traffic significantly as you're trying to get into the CBD. This one, you're going to have to wait it out. Manyanja Road this morning, jam, and no butter, unfortunately. Things are not moving as smoothly as you'd like them to this morning, unfortunately. We know that industrial area is going to be an absolute mess from tomorrow. So giving that general public announcement from the Kenya Urban Roads Authority that Jogo Road, Lunga Road section starting from tomorrow. This is to allow them upgrade the road from the existing single carriageway to dual carriageway. So plan in advance, guys. From tomorrow, industrial area probably will be a no-go zone. All right, let's look at Mombasa Road, all the way from the SGR, then towards, actually before that, then towards the JKIA turnoff, and then towards Cabanas. That's building up already. This was a mess from 5:30 this morning, so it's bumper to bumper, guys. It's not moving as fast as you'd like it to. We know also that from the Nyeri Stadium roundabout towards Westlands, moving very slowly as they work on the road there. We're likely to see the Kenya Power digging up parts of the road to keep their cables safe. So this affects traffic. Let us know why you might be stuck, how you can reach us, Spice FM KE on Twitter. If you're stuck somewhere, let us know. Or if you find an alternate route, we'd like to share that as well.
This is The Situation Room, the home of hard-hitting political commentary and penetrating insights about the state of the nation. This is a talk radio experience like no other. The Situation Room, a place for hard truths, debates, and elevated conversations. The Situation Room, witty, political, engaging, deep, controversial. In the room, we have C.T. Muga, researcher, academic, seasoned political observer, a fountain of wisdom in these politically uncertain times. Ndu Oko, Nigerian by birth, Kenyan by choice, communications expert, Pan-Africanist, a truth seeker and believer in people power, and Eric Latin, agent provocateur, the man in the chair, seasoned journalist, news hound, a man who believes in punching up, not down. This is The Situation Room, the only way to start
Good
your
morning
day.
to you at 2.5 minutes after 7 o'clock. This is Kenya's biggest conversation, The Situation Room, broadcasting on Spice FM, on KTN Home, and online on www.spicefm.co.ke, as well as Spice FM KE on YouTube, Facebook, and Twitter. Remember, in Nairobi, we're on 94.4. In Mombasa, it's 87.9. Kisumu, 102.5. Nakuru, 96.0. Eldoret, 96.7. 90.9 in Nyeri. And Malindi, 97.7. C.T. Muga, let's begin the hour with today's proverb.
The fight of a grasshopper is the joy of a crow.
How do we say it in Swahili?
Pansy.
Vita vya panzi, furaha kwa.
Cuckoo.
Okay, that's not bad.
CT, did you
Close.
set me up?
No, I
Kunguru.
didn't. I didn't.
That's what he was whispering.
I didn't, but it's close.
Right?
Bird.
Bird, cuckoo, chicken, right? Okay.
It's kunguru actually.
Avian.
It's a crow, but not bad. Same family.
Feathered creatures, that's all we need, guys.
That's it. That's all we need. So let's talk about gender and the gender agenda in this hour. Is gender parity unachievable in this country?
Eric, what on earth is gender? Let's just start there.
What on earth is gender? How do
Now,
we
what
define
is-
gender?
How do you define gender? Because to understand the issue of parity, let's just get down to basics. We discuss some of these things in new terminology that we assume everybody understands. I am of the view that not everybody understands when we say there's a gender issue. What is gender? And why is this an issue? Because where it has reared its head is in the August House, where we've had this discussion about the two-third gender, again, the word gender,
Yeah.
rule. And somehow that particular rule has gone back and forth, and to date, it hasn't been met. The requirements haven't been met. And what has been now, what has taken center stage in the discussion is, how then do you go about disbanding parliament? Because this is a constitutional requirement which they haven't met. This gender that can bring about the discussion, what is it?
So I think what you're looking at when you look at gender is not necessarily biological differences between the two. Or we're not looking at sex, male and female. What you're looking at now, and biologically, you're looking at social, you're looking at cultural differences between the two, and you're saying that wherever representation is needed, let there be adequate representation of both genders, male and female, across board. Unfortunately, when the gender debate has started, a lot of people have taken gender to mean female and female only. But that's not the case. When you talk about gender parity, at one time, should there be no more than 1/3 or, 2/3 of one gender? But a lot of times, unfortunately, because the gender that has been suppressed in most cases, whether we want to accept it or not, has been the female. Now, that has also led to the ignorance of the male gender. But unfortunately, most arguments have taken only the female part into consideration, which shouldn't be the case. So yes, you are looking at the differences between male and female, and what then is required to have them at par, parity at par.
Pa.
Par. And is it possible?
At least
Is
to get
the
to that
com-
point
yeah.
where we in the whole conversation, even in the conversation for the constitution and the gender campaigners of those days, the conversation was, look, we have an imbalance in our society, especially in positions of leadership. And we're starting by positions of leadership in government, starting from appointed positions, which are clear. There is an appointing authority, and the appointing authority can therefore decide how you appoint. And that was sorted by saying you shall ensure that all appointed positions in the country, you at least have that balance. And the balance is, let's not even start with 50-50, which many have argued for. Let's go for 50-50. Said, let's go progressively. Let's start with a third, saying that there is no one gender that shall occupy more than a third, more than 2/3 of the seats in any organ, right? And then now we come into the elective. Elective, that's where you're talking about the will of the people. So the Constitution tries to push us forward in that by, first of all, looking at, let's look at the assemblies, the county assembly, the national assembly, the Senate, right? At the county assembly, this is how we are going to ensure that we attain that balance. They came up with this formula that I argue against all the time. So if you do not have people elected, you shall then nominate to fill the gap. That ensure that there is that balance. For the National Assembly, this was left to the National Assembly to come up with a formula that would then ensure that we have that balance. This has been a back and forth. And we also have now organizational institutions. The Constitution itself created a big institution called the National Human Rights and Equality Commission. And then there was now the whole push that, no, let's separate the issue of gender and equality and create a separate commission for it. And this is when now the Gender and Equality Commission was established to come and champion all these things, not just the issue of the formula in the National Assembly, but to champion the issue of gender and gender parity across society, to ensure the issues of equality are addressed across society. Now that's where the conversation is today. Where are we?
Are the discussions about equity or is it about equality?
Equality.
That one will get tricky.
Oh, it's
Because
already at tricky stations now.
You see, the issue of equality then brings in an interesting discussion that in an African setting such as ours is unpalatable to many men. Very simply put, are they asking that men should be equal to women and women should be equal to men?
That is what the ask is.
another
It-
issue.
That is what the ask is.
Did I say there was more than one? Is that what I implied? Or did
That's
I-
what you implied. That was my understanding.
Okay. Let me, should we say, streamline your understanding. It is a loaded one. Because the moment you bring that discussion or you put that discussion or you introduce the discussion, immediately what comes with it are all the myths, misconceptions, misunderstandings that exist on this matter of gender. You bring into discussion all the supposedly cultural issues about gender, and you bring in the reality of what these disparities have been in our country for the longest time. That is what you bring in with this one thing.
Well, let's speak to the commissioner, one of the commissioners at the National Gender and Equality Commission. This is the Honorable Priscilla Nyokabi. She joins us now. Good morning, Mheshimiwa.
Good morning. Good morning, and thank you.
Good to speak to you again,
Thank you.
and welcome to the Situation Room. Let's start
Happy to be
with
here.
this definition: gender and equality. And you've heard what CT is raising. So, I mean, what does this equality mean?
Well, I think it's many things, including that the pursuit of the new constitution was also a pursuit of equality. So we have that in Article 10 of the national values, that as a country, we want to have equality as part of our guiding principles. And it's a long discussion about equality and equity, but basically in Article 27, for the men and women, it is that Article 27 says men and women are equal. And Article 27 also says that there are groups that have been left behind before, sort of historical marginalization and discrimination, because that Article 27 is equality and freedom of discrimination. And so the groups that have been left behind, the young people, the women, the persons with disability, the ethnic minorities, the elderly and the children, all they need to be addressed differently and given affirmative action measures to be equal to everyone else. So it's a pursuit of an aspiration for the country around equality. But the one for men and women, there is no doubt about that. Men and women are equal. And I think we like to say it's the Constitution. I think it starts with God himself. Adam and Eve were created at the same time. And God says we are fearfully and wonderfully created. So let the men not over-debate the matter. We are equal. We might have different biological functioning, different roles, but essentially in terms of our service to the country, we provide equal service to this country. Equity, on the other hand, means you treat unequals differently. You give to each according to their needs. And it's also a good principle captured within the wider equality debate. So sometimes what you need to give is equity. For example, the two-thirds gender rule, because if it was equality, we would have said 50-50. But also the bigger discourse is just equality. For our commission, gender and equality, that was also the conversation, that you don't want to lose gender principles, but you also want to pursue equality of many other marginalized groups, not just the women. So that is where we are both gender and equality, and the conversation continues. Thank you.
So the Commission has really been pursuing that agenda, gender and equality, and not just the issue of men and women, but the issue of also, just like you said, the marginalized, which includes the children, people living with disabilities, and the rest. Now, looking at so many years since the formation of this Commission, and especially if we just focus for a bit on the issue of gender at the national level, we know that there is the imbalance in the National Assembly, and it's because also that there hasn't been any successful attempt at doing what the National Assembly is mandated to do, which is come up with a working formula that will ensure that we attain this equality and equity in the National Assembly. What has the Commission been doing to push this?
Well, the commission was set up in 2011 after the Constitution came in 2010. And so, and we had a statutory commission before the Constitution of Kenya 2010. So the statutory commission, the National Gender and Development, was turned into the National Gender and Equality Commission. And so since 2011, we've been on this task. In 2011, the commission had its own enabling statute, which was passed by Parliament. And that law defines what we call the special interest groups, or the groups that then need to be addressed in this gender and equality discourse. We abbreviate them as SIGs. So when you come to our commission, you hear a lot about SIGs. The special interest groups are women, youth, persons with disability, children, the minorities and marginalized groups, and the elderly. So we call them the SIGs. And so since 2011, we have many programs that relate to the SIGs. Actually, each of the SIGs is a division and a program on its own. We also then have a big program around the law, the legal program. And in the legal program, we are able to pursue the writing of law and the implementation of the law towards ensuring that there is gender equality. We've been part of the many bills and many efforts in the National Assembly on the two-thirds gender rule. The National Gender and Equality Commission was the chair of the task force formed by the Attorney General, then Professor Gitu, to just guide the country on this matter. And many formulas were discussed, but the one that was felt to be the best for our circumstances is the one similar to the county assembly, the Article 177 formula. You bring the Article 177 formula to Article 97 on the National Assembly and to Article 98 on the Senate. That after the election, if the women have not attained the two-thirds rule, then women would have to be nominated to make sure that we get the right quota. And the numbers have become 66%. For no gender should exceed 66%. So that women now, because we are the gender that is fighting to get ourselves to the two-thirds gender rule, women would be 34% and men 66%. And we are seeing also a lot of mathematics. So another thing the Gender Commission does a lot is to ensure that the mathematics is achieved. Sometimes people do 30% and assume that they have met the ratio. The full ratio is 34% and 66% for the other gender. So that is a bit of the work that the Gender Commission has done. Duale bills, the Duale 1 up to Duale 5, we've been part of all those efforts and fought very hard. We've also done a lot of work in the counties where the law is much more clearer, and just make sure that in the counties the full two-thirds gender rule is obtained. And we have also tried to do the persons with disability and went to court, because the other thing we've done a lot of is to litigate. We have litigated on the cabinet, we have litigated on political parties, and that is the commission together with other partners. On the persons with disability, we are really, really concerned that the positions that need to go to persons with disability at the county assembly level, which is every party nominating one man and one woman who are persons with disability to serve in the assembly, to be the voice of the persons with disability in the assembly. Unfortunately, our country being what it is, only 10 counties have fully complied. Another 17 counties have none, have zero PWG. And then 20 counties have one gender and not the other gender. And sometimes for us women, we fear when they say one gender because it's most likely going to be a man. So even in terms of PWG, there is a lot of work that needs to be done. Where we have taken this effort now is in the constitutional reforms that are coming up. And we are hoping that in the constitutional reforms that are upcoming, these matters will be fully resolved. And
Priscilla,
these matters will be more prescriptive. Thank you.
Priscilla, up until now, I mean, just from what you're saying, up until now, it's obvious that this balance has not happened. What would be the indicators to show that this could happen with constitutional reforms? It has not happened. There have been many reasons. I mean, like Erica said, there have been many reasons why. I mean, you couldn't. There was, if we're looking at the National Assembly, there was lack of quorum to even discuss this, to even get it on the floor, to have it discussed. What is going to change? Because it seems to me to go beyond just filling in the numbers. It seems to be an attitude problem in the country. And if that's not fixed, constitutional reforms are not going to do anything about this either.
I belong to the Afro-optimist category. We are always having our glass half full. And you know, the Afro-pessimists are saying even we have no glass. Forget it being half full or half empty. But I personally believe that we have a glass in the Constitution, and we have it half full. So what we need to do is to fight to make it full. And in that theory then, you would look at the National Assembly, for example. The National Assembly before the 2010 Constitution had 9.5% of women. The National Assembly we have now is at about 26%, both the National Assembly and Senate. And so coming from 9.5, 10%, up to 25% is still progress. It is not full progress to 34%, which is where we want to go, but between 10 and 34, we are 26. And so if you were to look at the indicators, you would then say that the country is moving forward. It is moving slowly, but it is moving forward. The 47 women reps came in through the Constitution of Kenya and have added the number of women that we have, for example, leading committees that are critical in the National Assembly. We now have the Health Committee, we have the Lands Committee, we have the Finance Committee for the first time since independence led by women. And that is progress. It is not full, but it is progress. If you turn to the Senate, we have the Deputy Speaker now, Professor Margaret Kamar, and that's not a small seat, and that's a big position really for women to be sitting at. We do have the Deputy Majority Leader and the Deputy Whip, both women, Fatuma Dulo and Senator Fatia, Senator Fatia. And so if you look at Senate as well, where the 16 nominated women senators add to the numbers, and the shortage in Senate is only 2 women. The shortage is in the National Assembly, with the 23 women elected in constituencies, is just about another 22. In fact, the last time we counted, I think we needed another 23 women to take the number up to the 2/3 gender rule requirement. In the Senate, only 2. So still, I mean, progress is being achieved. In Cabinet, we have 28% of the members being women. Again, not the full 34%, but we have women for the first time in the history of our country sitting on some dockets. The docket of foreign affairs, the docket of defense, the docket of education, when Ambassador Amina Mohammed was there. And so again, we can say progress is being made. In the PSS level, that is achieved. We have the full 2/3 in the PSS level. In the classes, even seeing younger women being introduced, again, the conversation between, are we just talking about older women, or are we also talking about younger women? And some of the younger women who have come on to serve as classes have done the country proud. Kasmu Wangangi remains a good example, just came in with the COVID times and has done a good part being a doctor herself in the Ministry of Health. So progress is being achieved. In the judiciary, it is only in the Supreme Court where we have 2 out of 7, and so do not achieve the full 2/3. In the High Court, where Judge Mumbi Ngogi has, for example, charted a good path of the fight against corruption, a lot of the corruption decisions that we are using have been done by Judge Mumbi Ngogi. So High Court achieved, magistracy achieved, full. In fact, judiciary is doing 48% of the gender, of the women gender. And so the indicators actually show that it is doable and it will be doable. We just need to tighten the law a little bit more. And so the constitutional reforms allow us to hit the nail on the head, in the sense that now you don't leave the law to Parliament. You now have in the body of the Constitution the formula, like what we have with Article 177 and what we also have with Article 174 in the county government and county assembly. And what we also want to have in the governor and deputy governor being of opposite gender. I now favor myself prescriptive writing. What I have seen is that the male gender is a bit resistant on these principles. So every time they can escape,
Can I ask you why?
then they escape in interpretation.
Can I ask you why? Why do you say that they would be hesitant on this? What fuels that?
I just think that, I don't know, I mean, it's a bit like COVID. This patriarchy, I think we have the worst strain in this country. Because, I mean, look at neighbors in our region, Tanzania and Uganda and Rwanda and Ethiopia. And even Sudan are doing much better than us. So I think our men and the men in the studio should tell us. I think our patriarchy is like COVID. We have the worst strain in Africa, I think. Because even in West Africa, women are doing better. In North Africa, in South Africa, Dlamini Zuma, women are running for presidency in South Africa. So I mean, I think that our patriarchy is softening, and we are engaging our patriarchs and just making them understand that having men and women in leadership and taking decisions is a good thing.
If I follow your
argument, have a bit of a long way to go.
If I follow your argument and I think of electoral politics in this country, are we then saying that the large majority of men who are elected into electoral posts are elected predominantly by men, and that women have no part in electing them?
Well, patriarchy is a complex societal issue. So you are right in the sense that the men who are elected by men and women. And women who are not elected by men and women. So it's a societal issue, and part actually of the weaknesses around our campaign has been that we are not involving the male gender enough. So this conversation is not just a conversation for women, because there are women who also don't elect other women. And so what we want it to be, and that's why we are pushing for constitutional reform, is make sure that it is a Kenyan matter, it is a societal matter, and it's a developmental matter. That constitutions are not an end in themselves. We are going to economics and we are going to development, and we need to go to development as men and women. And so the conversation you're right there is not just for women, it is for men and women of our country. And even boys and girls. How are boys treating girls? How are girls treating boys? So the conversation needs to start a little earlier with the 2/3 in schools, with 2/3 in some of the courses. It's a really, really larger conversation in terms of the role of women in development of our country.
We'll come back out of this break and talk more about that, the role of women in that, and also the role of men in understanding the need to fight that patriarchy that you talk about. We'll also talk about now the formulas that you're saying. It will be better to hardwire them into the Constitution, into the supreme law, so that we ensure that this is actually achieved. I have a number of misgivings with the actual type of formula that you are preferring, but we'll also discuss that. This is a Situation Room. It's Kenya's biggest conversation. And the conversation this morning is a commissioner of the National Gender and Equality Commission, Priscilla Nyokabi. We are talking about the issue of gender parity. Are we likely to achieve it the way our Constitution aspires for us to achieve it? Let's take a break, take a look at weather and traffic, and then we'll be back. This is a Situation Room on Spice FM and KTN Home. Good morning.
.5 Spice FM, Kisumu.
When it comes to bridging the information gap to help strengthen the agricultural sector in our country, you can always rely on Farm Kenya to be the glue holding everything together. And now, courtesy of the partnership with Farmster, things couldn't be better. Introducing Farm Kenya platform, and it goes like this. Our SMS service will help farmers upload and publish their products without smartphones, while the Farm Kenya app will allow buyers locate, purchase from, and engage the farmers directly. So if you're a farmer, send a free SMS to 40446 and connect with buyers free for life. That's 40446. If you're a buyer looking for local produce, download the Farm Kenya app from Google Play Store or the Apple Store for free. Remember, ukulima sio shamba pekee. Ukulima ni digital. Ukulima ni Farm Kenya platform.
Kuimarisha Kenya ni jukumu la Farm Kenya.
Brought to you by Farm Kenya and Farmster, working to secure your growth.
Now what brings you out to these here parts?
I'm looking for 12 bakers who can impress. I'm looking for creativity. I'm looking for the ability to work under pressure. And I really just want to be wowed.
Ma'am, what you seek is the magnificent 12. I can help you find what you're looking for.
The Great Kenyan Bake Off, brought to you by Unga Limited, inspiring a nation to bake.
Classic soul, R&B, smooth jazz, neo soul, and nostalgic ballads.
Make some noise. Yeah!
You're listening to Spice FM. The weather with Spice FM.
This morning at 14, we're looking at those mostly cloudy conditions for most parts of today. Highs of 25 and lows of 13. Let's look into Nyeri. Now we're at 14 degrees. It's mostly cloudy as well. Highs of 23 and lows of 13. In Nakuru County, sunny conditions at 13, highs of 24 and lows of 11. Eldoret at 13 degrees is mostly sunny. We'll see highs of 22 and lows of 11. And the chance of thunderstorms is quite high from what the forecast says. And in Kisumu today, 20 degrees and sunny conditions at the moment. Partly cloudy conditions later with highs of 28 and lows of 18. Kakamega is mostly sunny at 16, highs of 26. There will be a chance of a shower or two later on. It's partly cloudy in Mombasa, 24 degrees, highs of 29 and lows of 23, and partly cloudy in Malindi as well at 26, going to highs of 28 and coming down to lows of 24. Kampala is partly cloudy at 19, highs of 26 and a chance of rains later with lows of 18 today. Dar es Salaam is partly cloudy at 24, chance of rain as well, highs of 30 and lows of 22. In Joburg, it's still mostly sunny at 13, highs of 25, coming down to lows of 12. And finally, for now, in Lagos, the rain keeps coming down, 29 degrees, going to staying at that high throughout today, and lows of 24.
Chilled Spice. Traffic.
All right, folks, it's tear-inviting conditions on Mombasa Road today. It's not moving, unfortunately. Bumper-to-bumper situation, guys. And the reason is because there was an accident on Siokima on Mombasa Road. Expect even heavier traffic this morning. Quite a number of people have been rushed to hospital this morning. Several casualties because of this one accident. So that's what's happening on your way inbound to the city. So please approach with caution. And if you're on Mombasa Road anyway, approach with caution regardless. All right, let's look at parts of Thika Road. We're getting into the CBD. Is looking a little bit dodgy. Around the Pangani underpass, it's quite the chock-a-block situation, bumper to bumper as well. And we know that there was an accident on Thika Road today. It's not looking like too exciting of a Tuesday morning, but let's try and keep it safe and as tight as we can, shall we? Prepare for traffic in industrial area from tomorrow. The roads will be closed, Lunga Lunga as well as Jogo Road on certain parts. So industrial area would be a no-go zone tomorrow by all indications right now. Spice FM KE, let us know what you see just in case you're stuck or you're looking for an alternative.
Sugar and spice and everything nice. Spice FM.
Spice up your life. Mature, intelligent talk every morning. Spice up yourself.
The conversation continues. This is Kenya's biggest conversation, The Situation. Remember, you can also follow The Situation Room on our social media platforms. Spice FM KE on YouTube, Facebook, and Twitter, as well as Spice FM KE, www.spicefm.co.ke. We're having a conversation with Priscilla Nyokabi, a commissioner with the National Gender and Equality Commission this morning. And of course, before we went to the break, City, she was talking about the issue of patriarchy and issue of seeing that the way the society feels about elevating women to positions of elective leadership. You wanted to ask a follow-up question to that.
I did. I wanted to ask, does the commission endeavor, or has it attempted to, does it have a say in whether these matters of gender equality or parity are actually taught in our schools?
No, we don't have a big say on that, but we have been trying to partner with the Ministry of Education and with the Curriculum Development Group just around those matters, but we haven't had as much success. For example, as the National Cohesion on Integration Commission that has been able to work with the drama program and to just get more activities around national cohesion. I think we might need to borrow at least from what the National Cohesion Commission has done for matters gender. We are yet to do that exhaustively. But we do have a children's program, and we try to interact directly with the students. We've got a students program directly, but not curriculum-based.
What sort of program is this? Can you give details?
Yes, we do work. Children's voices are also very, very critical. So in a lot of our activities, we do have the children's voice. We work with the Kenya Alliance for the Advancement of Children, which used to run the Children's Parliament and the Children's Assembly and the Children's Government at the time. But we do then interact with children directly and allow the children to have their voices and to give their memorandums on the issues that concern them. When we did the age of consent, just recently the age of consent was under challenge, age of consent for sexual behavior and for sexual engagement, where the Court of Appeal Division had proposed that we move from 18 to 16. And we did involve and discuss the matter with a lot of children, both boys and girls, and many of them felt that the age of consent should remain 18. And so we put out a big report and pushed that the age of consent remains 18. So the children's voices mostly.
It has been argued that the people who actually promote patriarchy more than any other group are the mothers. That they are the ones who instill some of these male values that men have when the children are growing up. What is your view on this statement?
Yeah, that's been a bit of a sad thing to learn. I mean, for example, in FGM, you still have mothers, instead of helping the daughter to escape FGM, are the ones who actually ensure that the FGM is done. But it's what we are saying about societal sort of how it works on your mental facilities and faculties. Because we've even seen young women who go up to university level without FGM and then subject them to FGM after the age of 18. So the mothers have a big role in terms of protecting children from some of these abuses. And I like to think of our own backyard in Nyeri, where it is the mothers that led to the end of FGM. I think when the fathers went to fight in Mau Mau and the mothers were left, the mothers decided hii kitu tuendelee nayo. So when the fathers came, wakakuta FGM iliisha. So the role of mothers is quite an active one, and that's why the programs around education, the programs around awareness, the programs around sensitization need to go on, so that the communities that are still conducting FGM, and now the president has declared an end of FGM by the year 2022 for our country, and the Ministry of Gender is actively on that program, the mothers then become partners. But both mothers and fathers, both boys and girls, is what we are saying all the time. It isn't just mothers, it is actually both. Because even when the bills come to the National Assembly for the 2/3, you see heavy condemnation of women members of parliament who are not in that session. When a bill like this one comes, when a matter like this one comes, it must be for both men and women. And just in your question, we are looking at also the role of chiefs and really celebrating the continued appointment of women chiefs in many parts of the country, and women assistant county commissioners, women county commissioners, women regional commissioners. That's going to help our discourse. So that you don't see FGM alone. You see FGM as part of education, as part of empowerment of women, as part of women going on to leadership.
As you say that, I look at the constant clash of cultures, of culture and development. And when I say development, not necessarily infrastructure of the country, but development of ideas in the mind. When you look at the end of FGM by 2022, for example, one of the big fights over FGM has been that culture versus human rights, for example. And I look at things like, gender parity or equality in this country. Again, looking at a culture clash whereby a woman traditionally, culturally, has been the one who has been quiet. Do you think, or how do you think then, you can still protect culture and tradition, which is very important, but at the same time be able to move from what I like to call quite archaic beliefs?
Actually, that is the position of the Constitution in Article 11 on culture, that we must enjoy and celebrate our cultures, but we must also abandon any conduct that is repugnant to morality and to justice and to development. And it's that balance that the society is looking for. So that I, for example, support dowry negotiations, which are much happier. I wouldn't support dowry where it leads to gender-based violence. But where dowry is just two communities coming together, sharing in the marriage ceremony, I think that can continue. So you're right about the clash of culture and human rights and development. And that culture now luckily has a lot of law. There is now a lot of law. Judges have pronounced themselves on what is repugnant. We used to have a time when twins would be thrown away in our communities. We are way past that age. We have come a long way in terms of culture. We are a modern society largely now. So one of the things that guys regret in the women's rights movement is that it is only in matters of women where we are holding on to culture. So you have a man, pretty urban here in Nairobi, and with a European machine, with a European suit, with a European phone. But when it comes to treating his wife, now he is very, very African. That also can't be accepted. If we're moving forward as a country and modernizing, there will be no reason for us to modernize and hold on to culture only where it keeps women behind. And we've challenged even that culture and seen that in some of our communities, where I come from in Nyeri, defilement, we don't even have a Kikuyu word for defilement. We don't have a Kikuyu word for rape, which means those were not our behavior as Africans. In fact, sexual abuse on children was intolerable. They used to put somebody on a beehive and throw that beehive down Sagana River if you ever touched a child. So that is how much children were protected in the African culture. Women were protected in African culture. So this is a big debate. And I think some things patriarchy has just found ways of justifying. Like, when you want to beat a wife, you now say it's patriarchy. when our grandfathers had several wives with the dimbi. So I think it's just bad behavior which we need to get away from. Whether culture or not, we just need to say we now pursuing equality as a country. Men and women are equal. Men and women will treat each other well, and just get the society moving forward, going that way.
You know, where every time you look at economic issues in our country, the one thing or the one group of people who always seem disadvantaged are women and children. So if we say we are modernizing, or that at least, I would argue that I should say we are aspiring to modernize, and that in many, many ways we are still stuck with some traditional norms that perhaps have long passed their sell-by date.
Yeah, that is indeed true about the traditional norms that are keeping women behind. And I think maybe in some cultures as well, that's still something that we need to fight. Because when, for example, the National Assembly, the gender laws come, you find that the men in Western, particularly, I don't know what is their problem there in Western. I have actually been saying we need to even write a study on where these cultures are then. Ni wapi zimeshika sana, so that we can then know where to put the hammer, a little bit more. So it is true that some cultures are keeping women out of economic development, and we need to combat those cultures. And that's why the country has prioritized the fight against FGM. And also now, if you look at the BBI report, you saw quite extensive discussions around gender-based violence, that where the society has gender-based violence and where FGM is still going on, and where sexual abuse, sexual and gender-based violence going on, then women cannot economically, the women's potential for economics is not realized.
There's a point you made about the western part of the country. I didn't quite get it. If you could please elaborate on it.
What we are saying is that if you look at where women are elected, for example, the constituency members of parliament,
yes,
you will now find that, for example, Muranga already has achieved the gender parity without the two-thirds. Because with the election of Alice Wahome, with the election of Wamaua, and with the election of Ruth in Kisumu, and then the women rep, they have 7 constituencies, you have 4 women. So in fact, they actually do have 50% of the women elected. If you look at Homa Bay County, with the election of Dr. Ivo Barra, and the election of Dr. Lillian Gogo, and the election of Mili Odhiambo, and then the election of Gladys Wanga, the constituency has 9. The county has 8 constituencies plus the women rep 9. It means in the National Assembly they have 4 out of 9, which is really a good score. You go to Nakuru County, and you find where the women have been elected in Charity, in I'm forgetting her name now, Martha, and in Jane Kihara, and in Susan Kiheka, the senator of the county, and in Chelule, Chelule. 5 women really out of the number that they have in Nakuru. So you could actually say that Nakuru, Muranga, and Homa Bay have actually driven the agenda forward. And then you turn on to the western county. And the last time they elected a woman, I think, is 1974 in Julia Odhiambo. So that's why I'm saying now we need to continue, we need to focus the thoughts on where the problem is. And I think that there's a problem in Western, because even when we bring the two-thirds, when we had the 195 votes, the first Duale one had 195 votes. We just needed another, because you need 233 for it to pass. So at 195, we were the closest towards getting the number. In another count on Duale 2, we had 212 members of parliament on the floor. And so the number is closer. But if you look at the block that does not contribute to the two-thirds, that block is the Western block, then followed by the Rift Valley block, and then the Northeastern block. So I personally have seen Western as a very, very resistant to the gender debate, and I suspect culture huko ya Wabaluya.
Let's talk about that formula. Allow me to engage you a bit on the issue of this formula, for the elusive formula in the National Assembly. You've talked about Duale 1, 2, 3. How many have we had now? Duale up to 5?
5.
I think we have up to 5.
These are different attempts at creating a formula that will then ensure that the National Assembly gets the gender balance as required by the Constitution. Now, the one that I heard you say that you would, champion now would be like what is in the Constitution for the county assemblies, where we say if after an election we look at the number of men and women who've been elected and the gender that has less, then we nominate to fill the gap. Is that the same formula that you would be advocating for the National Assembly?
It's sort of two ways now. If nothing changes and we have the constitution as it is now in its current form and status, that would be the easiest because that is already in the constitution. But if we go on to larger conversations in BBI around the electoral process and the electoral system, then we would be looking at different changes because there are also people who have given weaknesses of the nomination process. We would be looking at a process that minimizes nominations if we go into wider constitutional reform. And one of those has actually been that why don't we have a Senate of 2 senators, 1 man and 1 woman, both elected and both voting? Because if you realize now in the conversation on the formula in the Senate, the women are not going to be able to vote for that formula. And so it becomes very difficult for the women to put in a women's agenda like water in that formula or like women economic empowerment in that formula. So that going forward, instead of having 23 women in the Senate who don't vote, it might just be better value. With the BBI now, counties are going to have as high as 35% of the resources going to them. Senate is going to be a much bigger house. And in many countries, Senates have 2 members, 2 representatives on equality, each county equal to the other. So we are looking at a formula that then allows women to be elected as senators as opposed to the nomination. So it's 2 ways. If the constitution remains as it is, then we use the Article 177, which is the Duale 1 to 5.
But why? Why, Priscilla? Is this not showing that there is reluctance to even think beyond or outside the box? Why would we say that for all the attempts since 2010, 10 years down the road, we are stuck in such a way that the only way we can achieve this is by nominating at the national level? First of all, just from the onset, I have absolutely no problem with the nominated slots so far that we have. Right, I have seen people who have been nominated into the National Assembly who have then grown their mettle in politics and they have even gone and won political seats. You've mentioned Millie Odhiambo, you've mentioned Johnson Sakaja and the others who have been nominated before. They have gone and won election seats. So I have absolutely no problem with that slot of nomination. The issue here is if we say that we shall then go through an election process and then come and top up. If we have 290 men elected, we need to nominate women so that we can fill up that gap. Is that addressing the issue that we have in the society, really?
We're looking at more than just the nomination. Well, the nomination would have to come in the sense that you would then say that you need men and women in the National Assembly for us to have a balanced debate on development and on the resources of the country. So if we make that analysis, then it means if women are not elected, then we must get another way of bringing women onto the National Assembly and Senate and nominations become easier. But going forward, and in the sense that more women are getting elected, we are looking at provisions around political parties, for example, that in the candidate list, can we start to have the 2/3 gender rule there? Even before we talk about the winning in the election, can every party give us a candidate list that is 2/3 compliant on the positions of governor, on the positions of senator, on the positions of members of parliament, and on the positions of members of county assemblies? And if we can get, for example, political parties to begin to implement these principles, we will be moving forward better. But for me, I'm a bit sort of empowered and happy with the proposals in the BBI because the proposals in the BBI are going to give us the full 2/3, but also address other challenges, for example, equality of the vote. If we're talking about equality of the vote, the 1 man, and I personally like to say the 1 person, 1 vote, 1 shilling. That would then mean that the 1 person is both man and woman. That we address Article 81B, which is the 2/3 gender rule, and Article 81B, which is the equality of the vote together, as we discuss the matters of representation and equality going forward. We have made a strong case with the BBI on gender justice, building gender bridges. Don't just build community bridges. It has also to be gender bridges as well. So we are looking at a much better environment sort of going forward, having as many women elected, but where we then don't meet the 2/3 gender rule, where we don't get to 34%, then the rest can be filled by top-up. And I want us to just quickly say, because another criticism we receive is on the quality of leadership. We in the Women's Rights and in the National Gender and Equality Commission do it in 2 ways. The first debate is on the numbers. Because, I mean, even the quality of men is doubtful. So if we are talking about quality, let's not first talk about quality of women alone. Let's talk about quality of leadership after we have achieved the numbers.
Yep.
To achieve the 2/3, and then get on to a very, very broad conversation on the quality of leadership, because women must also offer quality leadership and value in leadership for more people to elect women.
How is that going to happen? Because I'll give you a typical example. How is it going to happen, and what needs to be done to ensure that quality is maintained, achieved, and then maintained? Even to get, because if you're having those nominations, for example, and I kind of hear what Eric is saying at this point, because to then nominate, it's almost, I can see that you would then get it normalized so that you have, women in those positions. But to get women to come out of what could be a proverbial shell, to bring out the quality that is necessary to fill those positions, seems to be teeth-pulling exercises. I can't tell you how difficult it is to even get women to come into the studio to talk about issues that are pertinent, that are important. Women in positions of influence don't even want to come and have discussions. So when we're looking at a national level, how are we going to make it that you are bringing in quality, maintaining it, achieving it, if we can't even have conversations going?
Yep.
Yeah, that has been a bit of a challenge, but just like every skill every skill you could think of, skill is learned. Skill is it's an art. Leadership is an art, and so sometimes I feel like we are criticized heavily if you look at the political scene and see that some men have been around leadership for the last 30 years. Women have just come onto the scene. So if you look, for example, at a refined legislator like Jim Orengo, it will take us quite a bit of time to get to the same refineness and to get to the same art. He does the art of leadership quite easily. I look at someone like Professor Anyang, just kind of handling, he has problems with healthcare and all those other things, but the man is just breezing through leadership, If it was a woman, look at how Governor Waigoro is hustled and harassed, and, Governor Ngilu, bwana maneno, makelele, vita, kila kitu. The men are just breezing through that leadership space. So we will take some time, and we are learning, and we are listening, and it's going to get better. Some of our women who are now two-term or second-term women, Gladys Wanga and Sabina Chege, are starting to get, and Rachel Nyamai are starting to get there. They are not at the James Orengo level, but, sort of moving. So that quality debate is something that the women have taken up. And for me, quality must also be transformational leadership. There will be no reason to bring women to leadership for the same corruption, for the same ethnicity, for the same tribalism that we have always suffered. It must be that women are coming on to leadership to offer new values. And the new values must be around that women are going to manage resources better. Women are going to manage the space better. So that conversation is going on in the different circles. Tomorrow, for example, we have a long discussion on public finance management, because women were absent in the debate on the formula. We saw Sakaja, we saw Mutula Jr., we've seen now Malala, and we've seen a lot of sort of younger male senators taking up the space on the formula, and we didn't see the women doing the same. And it comes down to skills, it comes down to learning, induction, and all that. So that we are handling. But I also want to say that the law, in terms of the reforms that we are looking for, is going to better the environment in this way. It will now not be possible to nominate someone who did not participate in the party primary. I think that affirmative action must be for those who are also trying to help themselves. And so now it will be a requirement that if you want to come on to leadership, even on nomination, you first go and take part in the party primary.
Right.
Unakuja na kura hata kama ni kura tano.
Yeah.
Come with something. Don't walk here empty-handed. And also, the other thing is that we will have a vote received context. We have been wasting a lot of votes in our electoral system. So we now want to move to an electoral system where every vote counts. And so when I come on to assist my party to win, I have actually done real work in the sense of the votes my party will receive. So we will now be sharing the nomination seat on the concept of votes received. Every party must go out there and actively look for votes, and the votes that you receive determine the number of seats that you get in the National Assembly for nomination, so that the women who want to be nominated must first go and help the party to receive as many votes as possible.
Thank you very much, Priscilla, for speaking to us. And just as we conclude this, you've mentioned, some of the male leaders who stand out. We also, I think, ought to mention some of the women leaders who stand out, even from the past. The likes of Phoebe CEO, Grace Ogot, and like you said, Professor Julia Ojiambo. These are women who are of repute.
Why have we forgotten Wangari Maathai?
Wangari Maathai as well,
And Martha Karua.
and Martha Karua, who have also served, and their tenure hasn't been questioned. They haven't had those manenos that you're talking about. Nobody has really questioned what they do and what they deliver in positions of leadership. But we have a way to go, and it's important that we continue having these conversations. We have been speaking with the commissioner with the National Gender and Equality Commission, the Honorable Priscilla Nyokabi. Asante sana for speaking to us, and we wish you a great day.
Asante sana, and please keep to their optimism.
Sure.
We will achieve this. It is taking us longer, lakini tutaipata tu.
Yep, as
Thanks,
long as we
Priscilla.
think outside the box. Asante sana. This is the Situation Room, Kenya's biggest conversation, also on KTN Home. We will be back shortly.
Spice FM, Nyeri. Spice up your life.
2 minutes to 8 o'clock. We'll be having a different conversation in the next hour. Just quickly, what you make of what we heard from Priscilla Nyokabi, CT?
Well, the thing is, every time the gender issue, anything to do with gender is discussed, the discussion tends to lean more towards giving women an equal opportunity, not men. And my mind went to what happens when you actually have a situation which is a complete inverse of what we currently have. More women in parliament, more women in jobs. Will this push for affirmative action be the same? Will women push that agenda as much as they're pushing for women?
It'll be men pushing the agenda.
The reason why I
For
asked
now, they're marginalized. So
If gender parity should then do that, that's the thing. If it is true gender parity, then when you see
Then
an
there'll
imbalance
be
on
no
the other side, then there
marginalization.
should be that if you see that such has become, then the same should fight then for the balance on the other side. That's what true gender parity means. That's why in the beginning of all this, we said, unfortunately, people have taken gender equality to mean women's empowerment. And it's not necessarily
It's the way it's
just
presented.
that.
Actually, where I was going with my discussion, I was saying that what should take center stage is who provides better leadership.
There you go.
That's
It
really
shouldn't
what
be about what
Wales.
your gender
Yeah, no,
is,
no.
but who is serving
The
better
person,
in positions
not
of
the
leadership.
gender that provides.
No,
the
no,
person.
the person.
Yeah,
Absolutely.
Indeed. So this is the Situation Room, Kenya's biggest conversation. Keep it right here. It's now coming up to 8 o'clock. In the Situation Room, of course, is CT Muga, Ndu Oko, and Eric Latif. We will be speaking to Eliud Owalo, a politician and a strategist. He has now joined the Hustler Nation, the Team Tanga Tanga. So we'll be asking about that. Remember, he was in ANC last year, vying for the Kibra by-election on an ANC ticket. So keep it right here. It's now 8 o'clock.
Sugar and spice and everything nice. Spice it.
Spice up your life. 102.5 Spice FM, Kisumu.
All right, let's look at what it looks like on the roads just now. We know that Mombasa Road and Thika Road today are an absolute mess. And there was an accident right around Siokima on Mombasa Road and several casualties, unfortunately. Approach with caution. That is if you're inbound to the city. Outbound, not too much of a problem. But we know that the expressway and the works having happened there, causing some traffic all the way from the Nyayo Stadium roundabout all the way towards Westlands. Coming into the CBD from Thika Road at the Pangani underpass is where you have a bit of a shocker. And so it's a bumper-to-bumper situation there, not getting in as quickly as you'd like to. Coming off Langata Road and Gong Road looks good. It's not too much of a problem as you get into Valley Road and then into the CBD. All right, so we know. I'm going to remind you as many times as I can today that the industrial area will be no-go zone tomorrow. The traffic will be crazy. Lunga Lunga and Jogo Road from industrial area will be closed because of roadworks to extend to a dual carriageway rather. So you've been warned in advance. Spice of MKE, you're stuck somewhere, let us know. We'll find an alternate for you, or at least keep you company while you are.
This is the Situation Room, the home of hard-hitting political commentary and penetrating insights about the state of the nation. This is a talk radio experience like no other. The Situation Room, a place for hard truths, debates, and elevated conversations. The Situation Room, witty, political, engaging, deep, controversial. In the room, we have CT Muga, researcher, academic, seasoned political observer, a fountain of wisdom in these politically uncertain times. Ndu Oko, Nigerian by birth, Kenyan by choice, communications expert, Pan-Africanist, a truth seeker and believer in people power, and Eric Latif, agent provocateur, the man in the chair, seasoned journalist, news hound, a man who believes in punching up, not down. This is the Situation Room, the only way to start your day.
All right, 2.5 minutes after 8 o'clock. Thank you very much for tuning in to the Situation Room this morning on Spice FM 94.4 in Nairobi and KTN Home, as well as on our digital platforms, Spice FM KE, YouTube, Facebook, and Twitter. CT Muga, as we begin this new hour, what is today's proverb?
The fight of a grasshopper is the joy of the crow. Grasshopper fight, crow happy.
We're
Crow
assuming that the
looking,
grasshopper
crow
is fighting with
seafood.
another grasshopper.
Yes.
Okay.
Not grasshopper against crow.
Grasshopper
clarify.
against grasshopper.
Crow
Crow
happy.
look, crow
happy.
very happy.
Crow very happy.
Yes.
All right.
Grasshopper, not sea crow.
Right.
Confucius says, okay.
Okay. Now, I don't know who the grasshoppers are and who the crow would be. Yesterday, we were talking about the political silly season gaining speed. We have seen the politicians are back out. It's as if COVID had taken them onto some sort of hibernation. The hibernation is over. The politicians are out. We have seen the deputy president going around the country. He was in Kisii. He was in the coast. We have seen the ODM leader going around the country. He was in the coast over the weekend. He's planning to go to Kisii and he's holding other meetings. And we've also seen political realignments taking shape. One of those is Eliud Owalo. Yesterday, he went to Karen and he came out of Karen a changed man. On his way to Damascus, he basically just got somewhere and he was like, no.
You were suggesting that he had a road to Damascus experience.
Or entered the Jordan River.
Yes.
Or he had the experience and then decided to go to Damascus.
So basically, Eliud Owalo says he has joined the Hustler movement and he's going the full hog with William Ruto 2022. And just a statement that he released yesterday. Over the past 2 months, I have done a great deal of internal reflection, consulted widely, scanned and analyzed emerging issues in the political environment. It's evident that the real problems facing Kenya today are high levels of unemployment, high costs of living, blatant corruption, spiraling debt at all levels, loss of purchasing power for the consumer. We are also witnessing a worrying trend where the democratic space we have witnessed over the past 2 decades is drastically diminishing as a result of impunity and wanton disregard to the Constitution. So, with that being said, now let's ask ourselves, where are Wanjiko's needs in all this talk for 2022? Is Wanjiko being featured at all anywhere? Yesterday, in the similar hour to this, the 8 to 9 o'clock hour, we're looking at public debt. The government is planning to borrow to the tune of almost $1 trillion in the next financial year, both domestically, both domestically and foreign debt. And we're asking ourselves, do the decision makers actually consider the plight of Wanjiko, the voter, when they're making these decisions? So, and this is what we want to discuss today. Eliud Owalo, just to remind you, was last year we had invited him to the studio and he came to speak to us. He was a candidate for the Kibra by-election under the Amani National Congress ticket. And we asked him, hey, wait, Eliud, the last time we had heard about you, you were in ODM. And he told us, no, I left that party. I saw the light and I thought that this is the best vehicle for me, the Amani National Congress. A couple of months ago, we saw a statement from Eliud Owalo saying, you know what, I have thought really hard. I have looked at my experience in the Amani National Congress and I have decided to step out. He's been out. Yesterday, we saw the statement that I've just read. I have looked at the plight of the country and I am seeing that the best way to go is this new route. So let's ask him. Eliud Owalo is joining us on the line. Good morning, sir.
Morning. How are you?
Very well, thank you. Welcome to the Situation Room.
Thank you.
So you've just heard what I've said. We remember
yes.
between
Yes.
2017 and 2020, Eliud Owalo has been in 3 major political movements.
Yes.
Explain yourself, please.
Well, I did explain the circumstances that first of all led to my leaving the Orange Democratic Party. That is now which is information which is in the public domain. I don't really need to get back there. I joined the Amani National Party just in the period before the Kibra parliamentary by-elections. At that point in time, in my heart of hearts, I believed that ANC presented me with the best vehicle to enable me not just vie for the Kibra parliamentary election, but also to be part of the national. Well, 1 year down the line, I'm out of that party. And I've gone ahead and given reasons why I've left that party. First of all, I want you to understand that I've known Musalia Mudavadi for a very long time, over a period of over 20 years. We have a personal relationship outside the ambit of the Amani National Congress. Now, the way we were conducting our affairs within the Amani National Congress Party, perhaps in my view, was not the best way to progress forward. So I decided to step back a little bit so that I let them move with their political discourse the best way they know. And of course, with all due respect, also maintain the professional relationship that I've had with Honorable Mudavadi over a period of time, which is over 2 decades. So that is actually the position I took, and I've decided to move on. Yesterday, I'm a very decisive person, and when I make decisions, I announce publicly. Yesterday, I decided to join the movement led by Deputy President William Ruto. And my decision is informed by several fundamental issues. One, I believe that we need unity of purpose in this country. Today, our national political fabric is on the brink of collapse. We are witnessing a situation where political formations are being built around tribes in the guise of the BDI. It's basically political mobilization for 2022. And from where I sit, I don't need to be a rocket scientist to see that 2 or 3 families are working on a scheme to rotate leadership of this country amongst themselves. And personally, I cannot subscribe to that school of thought. I believe our constitution is very clear. I believe that each and every individual in this country, if not even tribal groupings, should have an equal right to ascend to the leadership of this country at all levels. If you look at what is going on in the name of the BBI today, I believe there's nothing wrong with our 2010 constitutional dispensation. The challenge we are facing is lack of implementation and a leadership deficit. That is why there is this, guys, that there are certain fundamental weaknesses in the 2010 constitution. If you ask me, as at today, most Kenyans are not even fully or adequately sensitized on what our 2010 constitutional dispensation entails from different perspectives. And here we are going around telling people that we must change the constitution. So it is my belief, considered belief, that all this scheme about the BBI is about creating positions for individuals. So I ask myself, if our interest is really national unity, assuming we expand the executive, for example, we have a president, a deputy president, or even 2 different presidents for that matter, a prime minister and 2 deputy prime ministers, those are 6 individuals. The best that can happen is that these 6 individuals will come from 6 different ethnic communities. What happens to the other 40 or so communities that we have in this country? So I think it is a lopsided argument. It does not hold any water. And I would rather be counted on the side of Kenyans by identifying with somebody, a leader, whom I believe can put Kenyans together irrespective of our ethnic origins.
This is the deputy president.
Yes, I believe that. I've looked at it.
The deputy head of the current government, the one that you've been...
The deputy head of the current government.
The one that you've now said has led us to where we are. Are you saying that the deputy president, for example, is against the BBI? Has he come out to publicly say that he's against the BBI? Or,
I'm giving you my personal opinion because I made a personal decision to join him.
So why choose to... Why, if you have such strong opinion about or against the BBI, why choose to align yourself with this particular leader unless you're saying that you have common thought?
I'm giving you my personal opinion. I don't want to impute an improper motive of anybody's part, and I don't want to speak on behalf of the deputy president. I believe he will speak for himself at an appropriate time. But I'm giving you my opinion on the basis of the BBI. And mark you, all this is speculative because we have not seen what the BBI report is.
So is your decision as well to join him then in speculation? You've joined...
It's not speculation. I've made a decision to join him. It is not speculative. It's not based on speculation. I'm giving you my position, my thinking on the BBI. He will also give you at an appropriate time, I believe, his thinking on the BBI. I'm giving you my personal opinion. I'm not speaking for him. That really needs to be clear.
Mr. Owalo, I'm a bit confused.
Yes, please.
The deputy president is still the deputy president and is part of this government. And yes. I heard you say that one of the things that you find a little tiresome is people trying to rotate leadership among themselves. And
yes.
If I understand, this particular government, when it came into being, had a mantra, Kumi Mimi, Kumi Ruto. That to me
what has happened now?
That sounds to me like rotation, if ever there was one. So when you speak of this rotation, I'm simply seeking clarification. What are you referring to?
Before we get out of your argument, what has happened? If it was Kumi Yangu, Kumi Ruto, what has now happened?
We don't know. We haven't
had an election yet. The Kumi hasn't finished yet.
Yeah, can I go on? I want
yes,
to
please.
Get there. I want to get there, just where you are.
Yes.
You see, there has been this argument that we need to restructure the executive to widen the participation of Kenyan tribes within political structure. I don't really subscribe to that of thinking. In my understanding, what brings about tensions, every other election cycle, is the culture of political deceit that we have witnessed in this country since independence. They voted Kenyatta. Immediately after independence, Kenyatta threw him under the bus. Mbuya stood with Kenyatta against Jaramogi. You saw what happened. He faced an assassination. Yeah. Later on, Njonjo stood with Moi. He was thrown under the bus. Immediately Moi became president. Raila stood with Kibaki in 2002. Kibaki sidestepped him immediately after the elections. Ruto has stood with Uhuru 3 times. In 2002, in 2013, in 2017. And there's this analogy of Kumi Yangu, Kumi Ruto. What has now happened? It is the same culture of political deceit. These are the fundamental issues that we really need to discuss. These are the facts of the case.
So then,
So let us not use weaknesses in the constitution as a scapegoat. It is the culture of political deceit that is deeply embedded within our political fabric. That's what we really need to address. And instead of politicians, in my thinking, getting into contracts with themselves, let us have certain formidable contracts with the Kenyan people. You ask me, our challenges, as I said yesterday, is employment, high cost of living, spiraling debt, and of course with the net effect that there is loss of purchasing power of the consumer. These are the issues that we need to address, and we need a leadership that can be responsive to these challenges.
and for
That is
what?
my thinking.
And based on all of that, from what you're saying now, is essentially that the current deputy president would then be able to deliver these things that you see as issues to the Kenyan people?
I'll go ahead and qualify that. Yeah? I've watched Ruto's politics. First of all, starting by supporting Uhuru in 2002 against all odds, because the mood of the country then was for change. Nobody wanted anything to do with Kanu. He stuck with Uhuru. I've watched Ruto going against the grain again in the year 2007, sticking his neck out for Raila Odinga. I've again watched Ruto supporting Uhuru Kenyatta in both 2013 and 2017. So I believe that he's somebody who is nationalistic in his politics. I will not belong to a political ambit where you have tribes being put together against other Kenyan tribes. We are all Kenyan, and we need one united country moving forward. So let us be part of a political formation where each and every Kenyan has got an opportunity to belong to.
Are you saying that opportunity currently doesn't exist?
It doesn't exist. Where does it exist? It doesn't exist. Look at the Jubilee establishment itself, all the way from 2013. Okay? There has been the issue of exclusivity. That was a fundamental issue. Immediately, Uhuru Kenyatta formed his government in the year 20. And of course, Ruto was not part of that government. It was a fundamental concern. I've sat down with William Ruto, and he has assured me that he is willing to reach out to each and every Kenyan, each and every community, to be part and parcel of his government. Look at the faces which are now coming in his formation. We have people like Senator Mudama, former Senator Hassan Omar, people like Boni Aluale, Kenyans from all shades of life. I want to be part and parcel of this national political discourse through a truly national political formation.
You've said just now
Not
that
tribal entry.
in 2013 there was exclusion when Jubilee took over power.
Come again?
You're saying that in 2013 there was exclusion.
Immediately, this current government, the 2013 Jubilee government was from there was exclusion. We cannot run away from that. There was the perception, largely, that the government was being constituted by people from two ethnic communities.
Okay. So
Yes.
when you've had the conversations with William Ruto, does he explain what was happening then? Does he say how you ended up having that exclusion that you could clearly see?
If I put myself on the other side, I think William Ruto is fairly in a difficult position today, because the way the current government affairs are being conducted is not the same way they conducted their government affairs in between 2013 and 2017. So I would not really blame him for the acts of omission within the current government since 2017, because we have seen a situation.
I'm actually asking about 2013 to 2017, because that's when you say that there was glaring exclusion. That time you're a member of the CORD coalition, which was more inclusive, I'm sure you'll say. But then you're saying the Jubilee government was exclusive.
And I was part of CORD then.
Yes. Now, I'm talking about the 2013 to 2017, when you have just said when the deputy president had more say in the government than he does now. How does he explain that exclusion when you have those private conversations with him?
You see, At times, mistakes are made, Latif, in the past, but you use those as lessons learned that should inform future planning. I've had extensive discussions with the Deputy President, and he has assured me his government is going to be an all-inclusive government, entailing all members of all Kenyan communities, and also addressing the fundamental issues facing the country, starting with youth and women empowerment, inclusivity, putting in place an appropriate policy and regulatory framework that will ensure that there is good governance.
History.
He has given me that.
Mheshimiwa, history in this country has taught us that the promises politicians make usually tend to be just that, promises. Because if we talk about the Jubilee government and the promises they made, whether it's of the laptops, whether it's of the stadiums, whether it's of many of these industrial parks that were set up, there's job creation. There's no shortage of promises that were made that have not been fulfilled to date. And it appears that with the time left before the next election, they will not be fulfilled. And the Deputy President happens to not have been, is part of that government that made these promises. So if he were to make new promises, how would one be convinced to believe in these new promises when the old ones had not been kept?
Our past experiences should always inform the actions that we take moving forward. Perhaps the Deputy President himself, in his thinking, has also realized that he needs to reach out to people who are not necessarily part of the Jubilee political formation. And that's why you see him reaching out to people who, by and large, have been part of the CORD coalition or the NASA coalition in the recent past. That will actually entail a paradigm shift in the thinking within his political circle.
Let's talk about the politicians and what they want to do for the electorate. And this is the person who's actually putting them in office. When we had a conversation with you when you came to visit us in the studio last year during the Kibra by-election, you told us, when you visited us in the studio last year, you told us that you believed that Musalia Mudavadi, the leader of the ANC, was the only political leader who had the interest of Wanjiku at heart. And I want to play that clip so that you listen to it, and then you tell us what is it that has changed now from the only political leader then.
My party leader, Musalia Mudavadi, is on record perhaps as the only national politician who articulates issues which touch on the interests of the common mwananchi. Whether it is issues of corruption, wanton corruption at higher levels, whether it is issue of spiraling debt, the position of my party leader on issues of corruption, issues of effective debt management, issues of unemployment, issues of spiraling inflation and the net effects, most people living below the poverty line, is very well registered in the public domain. He is on record today as the only politician at national level who stands with the common mwananchi, actually the last man standing.
Do you have a new man standing, Eliud?
It's the same man. Now, the issue here is plans, political plans, and even economic plans must be followed to a logical conclusion. They require action plans. One of the biggest challenges, which even actually informed my leaving ANC, is the level of indecisiveness within the party. Okay? And I don't want really to go into too much detail because Musalia is somebody I've got a lot of respect for. But I believe that in politics, you have to be decisive. There is never a perfect situation or a perfect decision in politics that you'll make which is risk-free. You need to be decisive. Once you come to decisions, if they're positive, turn out to be positive decisions, exploit the opportunities arising from there. If the certain decisions you make turn out to be negative, then you mitigate the risks. But I believe you must be decisive. That is one of the challenges I was facing in ANC, lack of decision making.
But I still want to go back to that, Eliud. What has changed between an individual? It's not about decisiveness. In this case, it is he held the beliefs of Kenyans at heart, understood what Kenyans are suffering from, and would have been able to deliver for Kenyans. What has changed then in the individual in whom you have now put the same beliefs? November 1st, today September 15th, less than a year later. Has that changed?
Musalia has very good plans. He has got very good thinking. But I'm sorry to say this, he does not follow up his arguments to a logical conclusion.
Was that your thinking on the 1st of November when you made the statements that have just been played?
You see, I've never worked with Musalia in a political formation.
So then
I've
how are
known
you
him
able
for
to have such beliefs about him so strong in terms of what you said? Your conviction was very strong. You used words that would have described somebody that you believed would have taken this country to the next level. And here we are,
Yes.
September 15th, less than a year later, and you're saying something totally different. Now, if Kenyans are listening to you about the decision that you've made today, don't you think it would be a bit flip-floppy in their minds about what
I'm not
decisions are being
flip-flopping.
made on a national level?
I'm not flip-flopping. I want you to understand the type of person Eliud Owalo is. I'm a very decisive individual. And I believe in action. I believe in progress. That was lacking in ANC.
You know, one
Are
of
we
the
together?
Mr. Owalo, I think you made yourself clear. And
Yes.
I also understand that it is your prerogative and privilege to change your mind on an issue if you wish. However, even the changing in itself in this country that we live in, it's something that happens all the time. Political leaders change positions, change parties all the time.
Yes.
So that is not unusual. But now, getting back to the person you know best, Eliud Owalo.
Yes. I'm not saying Musalia, the person, has changed.
Yes.
But I'm saying his style of doing politics perhaps is not in tandem with what I would wish to see.
That is understandable. Again, it is your prerogative. But I'm talking about the person of Eliud Owalo.
Yes. What about myself?
Yes. If Mr. Owalo is to present himself as a credible candidate for whatever seat he may seek to see,
Yes.
he may seek to vie for,
Yes.
in this day and age and in this time,
Yes.
will his sudden change a year after he was in one party not present himself as the complete opposite of who he says he is? Will it not show that he is indecisive?
I'm not indecisive. I pursue what I believe in. Today, I believe that, one, we are not actually right for a new constitutional dispensation, yeah? And I don't want to belong to a political formation to be advancing that agenda. That is one. Two, I don't believe, and I want to go on record on this, I don't believe that we need to rotate the leadership of this country between three families, three privileged families. I believe that a son of an ordinary man or an ordinary woman needs to have the opportunity to ascend to the leadership of this country. I want to be part and parcel of where Kenyans are. And if you ask me today, the common Kenyan is with William Ruto.
Let's take a break here, Eliud Owalo, and then we come back and continue to having this conversation. I think you've broached the issue of dynasties versus the hustler nation, and we want to understand exactly what that is all about. But we also must focus on the issue. Yes, and we must also focus on the issue of what is in it for the voter. Because as we see all political leaders, moving, forming coalitions here and there, shifting from one alliance to the next, we always tend to forget the issue of the voter. And we are then entertained by this high-stakes drama that then leaves us to forget about the voter. And we want to come back and discuss that. This is the Situation Room, Kenya's biggest conversation. With us on the line is Eliud Owalo. He's a politician. And this is also broadcasting on KTN Home. We'll be back shortly. It's 27 minutes after 8.
Classic soul, R&B, smooth jazz, neo soul, and nostalgic ballads.
Make some noise. Yeah.
You're listening to Spice FM. The weather with
This
Spice
morning at 16
FM.
degrees. We're going to see highs of 25 today, coming down to a low of 13, and the cloudy conditions will continue through into the evening. It's mostly cloudy in Nyeri at 16, going to highs of 23 and coming down to lows of 13. 24 will be the high in Nakuru today. Mostly sunny conditions currently at 15, coming down to a low of 11. Mostly sunny conditions in Eldoret at 16 degrees. Thunderstorms are forecasted for later, with highs of 22 and lows of 11. Kisumu sunny at 21. It'll go to highs of 28 and come down to lows of 18. Partly cloudy conditions in the afternoon, as is in Kakamega, where it's sunny at 19, going to highs of 26 with rainy conditions later on in the day. It'll rain at the coast, and this is in Mombasa specifically. Later on, highs of 29, currently at 26 degrees. Mostly cloudy in Malindi at 26, going to highs of 28 and lows of 24. It's partly cloudy in Kampala at 20 degrees, going to highs of 27 and lows of 15. And patches of fog in Dar es Salaam as usual in the mornings at 26, then inviting the rains to highs of 31 and lows of 22. Joburg is mostly sunny at 14, going to highs of 26 and lows of 13. And finally, for now in Lagos, it's showers still in 28 degrees, lows of 24, and the rain will continue through till Thursday.
Spice and everything nice. Alright, okay. Spice FM.
Spice up your
Right,
life.
so inbound and outbound, there seems to be some problems on Thika Road today. Traffic is piling up quite significantly so, and still not found a way out just yet. Getting into CBD, it was going to take you longer time than usual. There's overlapping and traffic and bumper-to-bumper situations. Trailer to truck on Mombasa Road this morning. Need an alternate? Yes, you do, but for now there isn't one, unfortunately. In and outbound, however, on the expressways, this is the Southern Bypass and the Eastern Bypass can be used, but Mombasa Road is crazy drama this morning. This is the effects of the accident that happened earlier on, so you want to approach with caution, okay? Okay. Uhuru Highway is still a mess, guys. I don't know what to tell you apart from that. You're just going to have to sit it out for this one. Spice FM KE, that's how you can reach us on Twitter. We can keep you company at best.
Sugar and spice and everything nice. Spice FM.
Spice up your life. Mature, intelligent talk every morning. Spice up yourself. Mornings done right. 94.4 Spice FM.
And we are back at
Nairobi.
29 minutes to 9 o'clock. This is Kenya's biggest conversation, the Situation Room, broadcasting on Spice FM and on KTN Home, as well as on our digital platforms, www.spicefm.co.ke, Spice FM KE on YouTube, Facebook, and Twitter. We are speaking with politician Eliud Owalo, who yesterday announced that he has joined the Hustler Nation. And this is the Deputy President's William Ruto's 2022 presidential bid, and he says he'll stand with him all the way. City, before we went to the break and when we were talking to Eliud, you said, this is Eliud and getting into political alliances is nothing unique to Eliud. It's not even unique to Kenya.
It's not unique to politicians.
It's not unique to politicians. People move from one alliance to another because based on what they feel at that moment is resonating with what they stand for.
Best suited for them. Yes.
Yep. We even see, presidents, the deputy president, they have all moved from one alliance to another.
They have.
So, Eliud really moving from one to the other is not an issue here of concern. It's just now trying to understand what... Sorry, go ahead.
Our politics, is also dynamic. Politics is not like a static mathematical formula where 1 + 1 is 2. No. Politics is very dynamic. New issues keep on emerging in that environment, and you have to, as a politician, you must strategically react to those situations by means of new alignment.
Yes.
It's not anything different.
Indeed, as a politician. Now, which brings us to the issue of the voter and the common mwananchi, the citizen. Where are the interests of Wanjiku when politicians are moving from one alliance to the next? Where are the interests of Wanjiku when politicians are looking at what best suits them strategically? For example, in this current political formations that we are seeing, political formations left, right, and center, but none of them is even talking about Wanjiko. They're all talking about families versus, this one family versus three families. Where are the interests of...
The big elephant in the room has been this dragon, this monster of a debt that we simply keep growing. One doesn't hear any leader of any political party or political divide
Actually,
addressing it directly.
It is worrying, and to me, I attribute it to a leadership deficit we have in this country. We have the problem, one of the fundamental problems we have in this country is a leadership deficit. We have leadership that is not responsive to the interests of the common mwananchi. And I want to take you back to my interview with you, about a year ago. When I was doing my bid for the Kibra parliamentary seat at that point in time, you realized that I pegged my campaign on issues and an economic empowerment agenda.
Yes, you did.
That, to me, is responsiveness to the needs of the common mwananchi. Today, the common mwananchi is facing challenges of unemployment for the youth, lack of opportunities for the women in terms of perhaps business opportunities or sources of livelihood, spiraling debt at all levels, not just national level, but also institutional and individual levels. We are in heavy debt, So these are the mwananchi today, against the background of this corona, is thinking of how to put food on the table. And the political class, on the flip side of it, is preoccupied with this BBI campaign. I mean, it is lopsided thinking.
Is it, Mr. Owalo, if we were to take your cue and be honest about this discussion, politicians of, whether it's the BBI divide or the deputy president's divide or President Uhuru's divide or Mudavadi's divide, none of them are addressing this issue, including yourself.
I mean, I've tried as an individual. I've never been elected to any leadership position in this country, but as an individual using personal resources, I've gone out of my way to roll out massive economic empowerment agendas in Nairobi and elsewhere. So, my record in this perspective is in the public domain. Before even I decided to run in Kibra, I had taken about 5,000 youth to driving school using my personal resources. Most of them are now drivers all over the place. I had empowered women in Kibra by way of economic activities, small itinerary trades. That is an economic agenda. The deputy president himself has exemplified his pursuit for economic empowerment. I've seen him empowering youth. I've seen him empowering women. I'm not saying that we need to give tokens to individuals, but I believe that if Ruto becomes president, he can put in place a policy framework that would facilitate the economic empowerment for both the youth and women.
Anybody can do that. Anybody can do that if we want to.
Not everybody can do that. We have got
if we're talking about putting in terms of policy framework to get some of these things done, anybody can do that. But what we have seen, unfortunately, is that there has been a heavy reluctance to do that. And the people who are talking about the average Kenyan who need a leg up in terms of development are the average Kenyan. It's not politicians. It's not leaders. It's not those in positions of governance. It is the individuals who are saying, how are we going to get out of this? Right? But then what they're being fed, unfortunately, is this musical chairs that we're seeing people jumping from one place to another, which we have accepted. It is all right, can be done. But when are we going to hear the representative voice of the people of Kenya who are seeking a better life for themselves? When is that going to come to the fore?
It will come when we have good governance. And good governance is a product of the leadership that you have at the top. Mm-hmm. You need a leadership that is decisive. You need a leadership that is responsive to the needs of the common mwananchi. That is where we should start from.
If I may opine, I would assume what you're saying here, up until the time of the handshake, that particular space you speak of, there are those who would argue was very firmly occupied by the Honorable Raila Odinga, speaking for the common mwananchi.
Yeah.
Or would you say that has not been the case? I would argue that has been the case, or at least it has been the perceived case. But the handshake seems to have brought with it other issues that now place him at the complete opposite of what hitherto he had been seen to have represented.
Let me tell you something, my friend.
Muga is the name.
Muga, yes. I know these politicians at a personal level. the national political leaders, whether it is Uhuru, whether it is Raila, whether it is Ruto, whether it is Musalia. And I've dealt with them at personal level. So they are not new to me, and I understand them. Most of these politicians are not responsive to the needs of the common monarchy. They pursue their narrow parochial economic interests. I want to be part of a political formation that in my heart of hearts I believe will be responsive to the needs of the common monarchy.
So why not form yours then? Why hop onto one of those that have failed? In your own opinion, most of the
By
leaders...
the way, for your information, before I made the decision to reach out to join the William Ruto's camp, I've had consultations with many people, far and wide, and you will see a massive movement to the William Ruto political axis very soon.
Why?
So it's not just me moving in as an individual. You're seeing an influx of individuals who have been part of different political formations.
So what has influenced this epiphany of all these people who are going to make this mass exodus from wherever they are from and then joining the Ruto side? What is it that has happened? What light bulb moment has occurred to make this a reality?
There's a point of convergence. We believe that we need to stop political impunity. We believe that we need to stop the culture that is creeping back within our national fabric of wanton disregard to our constitution. We are sliding back to the days of single-party dictatorship. Yeah, look at what is happening. What has happened with the COVID funds, and there is nobody there in the opposition talking about it. Yeah, people have literally just looted money. Yeah, it is like switching off a machine when a patient is in the ICU. These are some of the issues that we need to stop. But if we are going to be part and parcel of a formation that thinks of how to divide leadership among themselves and not responsive to the needs of the common monarchy, then we are going to be on the wrong side of history. I want to be part and parcel of a process that will identify with the majority of Kenyans. And I believe today, William Ruto, like all of us, I'm not perfect. William Ruto may not be perfect. Uhuru Kenyatta is not perfect. All the other politicians are not perfect. None of us as human beings are perfect. But I believe where we are today, to get us out of the current political morass and economic quagmire, we need a leader who is decisive, we need a leader who is proactive, and we need a leader who is responsive.
Do you think you could be such a leader, Eliud? Do you think you could be? I'm asking if hold on. I'm asking about you as an individual. Do you think you could be this leader? Because everybody that right now is sitting in that position, as Eric has said, has failed. Let's just be honest. In terms of delivering these things that you have just said now, have not been able to deliver them. Do you think you would be able to do that?
I'm not negating my capabilities. I believe I can pursue my ideas to a logical conclusion, but we have to be practical. If I came up with my political formation today, 2 years to the election, perhaps we will not be able to meet the objectives that we desire within a period of 2 years. I would wish to be part of a bigger team, but brought together by a convergence of ideas and convictions.
That sounds good, Mr. Owalo. In the history of this country, we've had really major scandals, and we've had the opposition speak about it, point it out, even when this current government was in power. There are many things that have happened under their watch that have been spoken of, but to what end? The reason why I'm asking this is, when we talk of the ills of this country, we cannot divorce the deputy president from those ills, because he is the deputy president.
Neither can we divorce the president himself.
Yes.
Because it is a joint president.
You see, the reason why I'm bringing this thing up, I'm simply trying to say this, that yes, there is need for change, and one has the privilege and the choice of determining where it is their political path should head. But the reality of our situation is, if we were to go by track records, I would be hard-pressed to say that the leadership that you're speaking of so highly presents a sort of confidence that one has, that one would like to have in feeling that this is a person who has demonstrated his ability to actually lead well by doing the things he has said. All we hear is more promises, Mr. Owalo. How do you entertain more promises when others which had previously been made were never kept?
I want to give you an example of myself. I believe I'm a responsive leader, if I'm a leader, that is.
You are a leader, Mr. Owalo.
Yeah? I believe I'm responsive. I want to give you an example of what I've done during this COVID period. Whereas we were coming up with packages at macro level to address basic subsistence for various groups like employees and vulnerable and so on, nobody was thinking about sportsmen. I went away in my small means to address some of the fundamental issues facing sports fraternity in this country. I gave support to Gor Mahia Football Club. I gave support to AFC Leopards Football Club. I gave support to both our national men and women basketball teams. That is responsiveness to the needs of the common mwananchi. So I believe that I've got the potential to identify a gap somewhere and go out of my way through a personal initiative to address a given challenge. That is why I want to be part and parcel of a process that can be responsive to the needs of the common mwananchi. Now, one thing with Ruto, which has attracted me to Ruto, is this. He listens, he shares ideas, and he believes in participatory leadership. The much I know about it. I've worked with all these politicians. I know them at a personal level. Most of them are not responsive to suggestions, and most of them don't listen to advice. I want to work with somebody who listens to advice. I've seen that in William Ruto, and I believe we can make a good team together.
Okay.
What would I must ask also, how, I mean, looking at how things have progressed over the last 3 years, in terms of looking at the way things have progressed over the last 3 years and how your politics has evolved, your politics as Eliud, and then now moving into the future with the decisions that you've decided to make, again, against the background of what Kenyans are looking for. If the position changes, or if you get in and you realize that maybe the sentiments that you have now would change, what would your reaction be?
You know, my sister, I'm one person who is very decisive. But ordinarily, before I arrive at any given decision, I adopt a participatory and consultative approach within whatever political formation I am in. I don't ordinarily just walk away in a huff. Mm-hmm. I try as much as possible to explore the available opportunities to sort out some of those issues internally. When you see me jump ship, that would mean that I've exhausted all the available opportunities to address some of the challenges I'm facing within that political formation. And whenever I make such decisions, some of them are painful decisions, some of them are very difficult decisions, I come out and I announce them publicly. But the starting point is to explore ways and means of addressing those issues internally within whatever political formation I am in.
You know, before your current position, Mr. Owalo, we had a politician from the Nyanza region who joined Jubilee. At that time, it was a novelty. I think he's the Secretary General of Jubilee as we speak. Now, given that ODM holds sway in that part of the world, do you think that your movement to the deputy party side will afford you the same sort of support that you may have had in the past?
You know, this is the argument. Let us stop looking at our politics in terms of tribes and ethnic enclaves. When are we going to adapt an issue-based approach to our politics? That's the direction we should be getting to. We want to know at the right time what agenda William Ruto has for Kenyans. We want to know what agenda the other presidential candidates will also have for Kenyans. And it has to be an agenda that is responsive. We should stop looking at leaders from economic lenses. And I believe you asked me this question when I was at your station when I was running for the Kibera parliamentary by-election.
Yes, and I did.
You remember you did?
I did.
And I did tell you at that point in time that I was not in the Kibera parliamentary race based on some ethnic stronghold. I told you that my stronghold at that point was the ideas I had and the agenda that I had for the people of Kibera. Well, I still stand by that position today.
Mr. Owalo, I think it is a good thing that you have a stand on the matter, and that is something that is laudable. Why I ask the question is that I assume that given that politics is, as is known to many, it's supposed to be a competitive sport, if I may use that analogy. And if one wants to win, one chooses what can best make them win. And to say that we must move away from tribal politics It's like asking a horse to fly. In this country, us moving away from
That
tribal
is the
politics.
unfortunate situation.
No,
That
it
is an
isn't unfortunate.
situation.
It's a realistic situation. We will not move from our political.
Realistic but unfortunate.
You see, even if there is an understanding that other people who don't come from our so-called ethnic backgrounds may not necessarily be the people we want, we start our political thinking from our ethnic backgrounds. That's how we are as Kenyans.
I want to take you back a little bit.
Yes.
I don't think I'm going to work. I've decided to go and work with William Ruto because I want to get a political position within his political formation. Okay? I must be, of course, I am having personal political interests. But if I wanted to be in politics just to get a political position, I'll just go sit down with him, sort out whatever issues we have between the two of us. And as is the norm, I would get back to Kibra or anywhere else for that matter to get elected in Luo Nyanza if I was subscribing to that school of thought. There are certain ideals I hold very dear, and I will not bend my convictions and beliefs just because I want to get elected to a given political position. If I'm elected, it would be good because I'll have a political platform to enable me advance my agenda. If I'm not elected, so be it. That will not be the end of the world. I'll pursue and continue pursuing what I believe in from other perspectives.
Actually, I just want to go back to that point that CT is raising. You managed the COD election in 2013.
Yes.
You are also senior in the NASA election campaign in 2017. Do you believe that this country is totally held under the yokes of tribalism, that there is no way people can vote based on anything other than tribalism?
In 2002, Kenyans overwhelmingly voted for Kibaki against current President Uhuru Kenyatta. It was largely an issue campaign because Kenyans wanted change. Okay?
Mm-hmm.
We are in another point of transition, and I want to draw a parallel between what is likely to happen in 2022 and what happened in the year 2002. We are going to witness a situation where Kenyans will say, we need a break from the past. We need a paradigm shift. I mean, our political space has been preoccupied with same faces, year in, year out. Why can't we have some new faces in the leadership of this country? I believe that time is coming, and it may as well just be 2023.
Is it going to be able to sustain it, assuming that that comes to pass? Is it going to be? Are we going to be able to sustain that momentum of electing Eliud Owalo, not because his name starts with an O, but just because of what Eliud Owalo represents?
That is where we should get to. That is where we should get to. We should elect leaders based on the virtues that they espouse, what they stand for, what their agenda is, and what they can do. We were at that level in the year 2002. But the unfortunate thing is the same that happened is the same culture of political defeat. The NAC government of Kibaki and Raila would have been a change government. But politics crept in. Once Kibaki was elected, people around him started thinking of how to preserve their space. So it is this same political defeat. These are the issues that we should be addressing. Let us not be blaming the Constitution. There is nothing fundamentally weak in our current Constitution. We should be looking at ourselves in the eye and saying, let us discard the culture of political defeat and conmanship.
I'm actually driving to that, and thank you very much for walking right into it. So, if in 2002, and you are also, not just an ordinary voter, even in 2002, if this is what was happening, if this is what was happening in 2002, in 2007, and in 2013, and in 2017, why haven't we seen formations that are actually advocating for votes based on ideology, votes based on principle, rather than votes based on tribe? You have headed 2 campaigns of those 3 that I've mentioned.
I've headed one campaign. I've headed one presidential campaign in the year 2013.
Mm-hmm.
Now, based on lessons that I have learned, for us to have a culture and attitudinal change within our national political fabric, we need, one, a generational change in our leadership. Certain people need to accept the same and appreciate the fact that they have done what they have made their contribution to the political space in this country. They need to give room for others. I believe William Ruto is an agent of necessity. if we are to have a paradigm shift in our politics, let's vote for the son of a common Mwananchi and pick it up from there, how to build around him and see if we can pursue an all-inclusive and reflective agenda.
Should
for
we
the better
vote for
of the
someone because of his ability or because of his parental heritage?
One, facts are stubborn. We all belong to given backgrounds, and we belong also to certain families. But personally, I would not support a situation where three families lock themselves up in a room and decide that they are going to rotate leadership among themselves. That is very retrogressive thinking. That is what is really happening today. Kenyans don't want to speak about it, but we need to speak about it. There is nothing called the BBI, but it's a question of how do we sit together as members of privileged families and transfer power from one family to another.
Another thing that
attack for transfer of power.
I know that our time is running out, but another thing that people don't like to talk about is that moves that politicians make for their own political expediency or their own political alignment. And those might say that you've made this move for just that. Is it really for what Kenyans want, or are you looking to make a space for yourself in the upcoming elections for 2022, not to be forgotten?
I want to make a space for Kenyans. I believe William Ruto is the agent of that change that we require in 2022. A responsive leadership that addresses the needs of the common Mwananchi. I want to be part of his team. And I've made a deliberate and conscious decision to pursue that agenda to a logical conclusion.
So finally, Eliud, why now? In 2013, you told us that you were offered a position in the Jubilee administration, in the cabinet.
Yes, I turned it down.
And you turned it down. So what was it that was making you turn it down then, and now you want to work with the Deputy President of the Republic?
Who is in Jubilee?
I'm not working with Ruto as part of the Jubilee presidency. I'm working with William Ruto as an individual with whom we can form jointly a political formation moving forward. I'm not working with him as part of the presidency. I'm not part. Working with William Ruto does not mean I'm part of the Jubilee government. Raila Odinga today is working with Uhuru Kenyatta, and he has said he's not part of the Jubilee government. So moving forward, I will pursue my political aspiration within the ambit of the Hustler political matrix. That's what I've said. And the leadership of that matrix is William Ruto. We can't run away from it.
Right.
I want to play that clip, the way you said you turned down that position in 2013 as we conclude the conversation.
Yes.
Are you getting it? And even after the elections of 2013, would you believe I'm somebody who is principled? I got an offer from the Jubilee Party to become a cabinet secretary.
All right.
After the 2013 elections. And I declined as a matter of principle. I told them I've just headed the Raila presidential campaign. There is no way, even if you see some qualities in me, I will join.
That was it then.
Yes, those were my words. I will not take them back. I'm joining William Ruto as not part of the Jubilee current political dispensation, but as part of a political formation that will take this country forward from 2022 over the next 5 years.
Well, we want to thank you very much, Eliud Owalo, for speaking to us this morning. Eliud Owalo is a politician and a management consultant. He's worked on various policies for things that are actually happening in this country. And now he says he's joined the William Ruto presidential bid for 2022. He's been explaining his move. He's explaining what he thinks the country should look at. Asante sana, Eliud, for speaking to us, and wish you all the best.
Thank you very much. It was my pleasure indeed.
Thank you.
Thank you.
I want to thank you very much for joining this conversation on Spice FM 94.4 in Nairobi, 87.9 in Mombasa, in Kisumu 102.5, 96.0 in Nakuru, 96.7 in Eldoret, Nyeri 90.9, 97.7 in Malindi, as well as KTN Home since 7 o'clock, now coming up to 9 o'clock. Keep it right here on Spice FM because we'll have more conversations. But we want to say a good thank you very much and goodbye to our audience on KTN Home. Join us again tomorrow on KTN Home 7 to 9. This conversation continues on Spice FM. This is Kenya's biggest conversation. Signing off is CT Muga Nduoko, and I'm Eric Latif.
Spice FM, Nyeri. Spice FM. Spice up your life.
Sugar and spice and everything nice. Everything nice. Spice FM.
Spice up your life. Mature, intelligent talk every morning. Spice up yourself. Mornings.
All right, so it's now coming up to a minute to 9 o'clock. City, maybe you remind us today's proverb as we go to the top of the hour.
Yes, the fight of a grasshopper is the joy of a crow.
What does that mean?
Well, you don't involve in fighting. It occupies your entire mind. And you don't even notice if there may be any harm coming your way. So if you were a crow and you saw two grasshoppers, why don't we just make it 3 grasshoppers having a little tiff? My goodness, they wouldn't even see you swooping down on them, would they? It's like food presenting itself to you.
So completely distracted.
Completely
the whole
distracted.
issue here
Is the fight.
Is the fight that is distracting them from watching over the
Yes.
bigger enemy.
Yes, yes.
So if you're distracted, just know that the crow is going to
Yes,
swoon in on
the
you.
crow will swoop in, and this applies to politics as it does in everyday life, devoid of politics.
All right. Keep it right here. More conversations continue in the next hour. This is the Situation Room. It's now 9 o'clock.
Sugar and spice and everything I spice it up.
Spice up your life. 94.4 Spice FM, Nairobi.
All right, guys, jam,
Traffic.
and nothing to go with it, unfortunately, on the roads in Nairobi today. Bagathi has joined the foray now. Bagathi Way, absolutely not passable this morning. For some reason, we don't know. It's bumper to bumper, and that's coming off of Langata Road. And then, unfortunately, it's going to join with the roundabout at City Mortuary. So oncoming traffic from Gong Road, then leading down towards Valley Road. I'm already tired thinking about it, but this is what we're facing this morning. Mombasa Road, also a mess. Coming off of Thika Road is bumper to bumper. It's everywhere you look, more or less. Sorry, I don't have better news. I know it's Tuesday. Didn't expect this today, did we? No. But we're going to have to go through it one way or another. If you find an alternate, a longer route, possibly the eastern and southern bypasses, yep, you can use those. Spice FM KE, let us know what you see, and we can help someone else at some point. No? Yes.
This is the Situation Room, the home of hard-hitting political commentary and penetrating insights about the state of the nation. This is a talk radio experience like no other. The Situation Room, a place for hard truths, debates, and elevated conversations. The Situation Room, witty, political, engaging, deep, controversial. In the room, we have C.T. Muga, researcher, academic, seasoned political observer, a fountain of wisdom in these politically uncertain times. Ndu Oko, Nigerian by birth, Kenyan by choice, communications expert, Pan-Africanist, a truth seeker and believer in people power, and Eric Latif, agent provocateur, the man in the chair, seasoned journalist, news hound, a man who believes in punching up, not down. This is the Situation Room, the only way to start your day.
All right, so it's 2 minutes after 9 o'clock. This conversation continues right here on Spice FM. Thank you very much for keeping it locked. Also, for all the comments on social media, Spice FM KE on Facebook, on YouTube, on Twitter, as well as, www.spicefm.co.ke. We are also on Instagram at SpiceFMKE. And in Nairobi, we broadcast to 94.4, 87.9 in Mombasa, 97.7 in Malindi, Nyeri, 90.9, 96.7 in Eldoret. When it comes to Nakuru, it's 96.0, and Kisumu is 102.5. Yesterday, we talked about public debt. So the government is going to do an extra $1 trillion shillings in public debt this year. The political formations, the talk is now about, BBI and 2022 and what's in it for the political leadership of the country, expanding the political space at the top level of governance, looking at what else to do, creating more positions for politicians to play in. For example, just like we were talking to Priscilla Nyokabi and saying among the proposals on meeting gender parity would be that of having 2 senators per county. So instead of having 47 senators, we have 94, but half of them men, half of them women. So it's all about, the politicians. The issue that affects the citizenry is often not being discussed. For example, the Federation of Kenya Employers released a report the other day, and it was also covered in yesterday's papers. And they were talking about the number of people who've lost their jobs. And this is only based on statistics from the Federation of Kenya Employers, which looks at their members. And these are those that are in formal employment. Those that have gone to register with the Ministry of Labor and said, we want to declare the redundancies for these positions. Those ones are the ones we're talking about. Many jobs, of close to 1 million. Many others have lost their sources of income. Many who had opened businesses are unable to sustain their business. Many who even try to come up with businesses. Actually, I've seen a story. Is it in the Nation today or the Standard? One of them that's talking about this person who came up with a brilliant idea to set up a water company in Ngong, and the kind of levy that they are charged, that you're charged just to run this company, just to run that business, and how much you end up paying is so much that really, as a new entrant into this business, you are not going to be able to survive, right? And I think it's actually in the Standard today. Is a Financial Tuesday. Should be in the Standard, story in the Standard today, and others such stories. So when people are trying to think of what can I do to make ends meet, those conversations are not being supported by conversations at the national level in terms of national leadership. Those conversations are not being followed up by the national leadership. So we are left to our own devices, so to speak, as politicians think about what is going to work and what's not going to work in 2022 going forward. Where should we be taking this discussion, CT?
On the one hand, I would argue that we actually spoiled for choice as to where to take the argument. But then there's the issue of the reality of our situation. I'm pegging this to the discussion on tribalism that came up when we're talking about the issues of politics with one Mr. Owalo. See, in my view, the mistaken perspective is that tribe is a factor of language and perhaps the geographical area that one comes from. But if you look at the discussion that we are now undertaking and look at the definition of tribe again, then you'll find that perhaps the more realistic perspective on tribe should begin with just identity. People who have a similar identity will of necessity form a tribe. And what is the commonality may not necessarily be the language, but rather the environment. Like I could argue that Parliament is a tribe who look after their own interest. That's what tribes do. Senate is a tribe.
A group of people who come together and have a similar interest can be a tribe. It doesn't necessarily mean that you have to be from the same place.
Yes.
Yeah.
If you look at the cabinet, tribe. Now, why do I say this? This is in response to the question that you've asked. You see, when you understand a problem, and we have correctly said so over and over, that the problem we have is one of tribe. It is, but not the way we think it. Not really. That is not where the problem lies. It isn't as though the solutions are not known. It isn't as though what ought to be done is not known. All these things are known, and what needs to be done is also known. We also know that there are problems with the will, political and otherwise, individual and otherwise, competition otherwise. We also know that individual interests will trump everything. We know all this. But the thing that underpins it is something we've discussed time and again in the studio, and it's called impunity. When it becomes part and parcel of the national fabric and the national ethos, then instead of providing an answer, I would ask a question. How on God's good earth did we get here? So that we substituted values that are supposed to be progressive and useful, and which guarantee that the welfare of every individual is at least given a glance, not even a look. When you substitute completely, then what on earth are we supposed to do? Because that's where we are. What are we supposed to do? Every time you turn, just when you think that these scandals had come to an end, just when you think, another one rears its head, and you're
worse than the one that you were with.
You're left with the Gosh situation. The World Bank suggested that one of the things we should do is discontinue some of these projects that we had. Now they estimate that $1 trillion shillings, which would otherwise go to these projects, which have not been completed, have not been started. Some with supplementary budgets have had money which was budgeted for them taken away from them. Industrial parks that have not been completed, meaning the goal for which they were intended have not been reached.
So what was the World Bank suggesting? We halt
Just
or
stop,
we...
don't bother. Don't stop planning to put more money into it.
This World Bank, guys.
No.
The same ones for the...
Same.
What was it in the 90s?
You're talking about structural adjustment.
Structural adjustment
Same
programs.
Same. Good. Now we are between a rock and a hard place. But the truth of the matter is this. If you simply look at the development plans that we had, again, we've had that discussion here, long term. 8 years is long term. If we were manufacturing at the rate we had planned to manufacture, it means that our GDP would have increased.
Yep.
If all those plans, and they were not supposed to take 8 years, they haven't taken the time that they were supposed to, they're not functioning. So what we have is a net loss as opposed to a net gain. So in this instance, when they say stop, I would argue they're telling us to actually do the obvious. If it has not worked this long, what makes you think that if you put more money this year, when you have an election just around the corner, that it's going to work?
I think it just calls for an honest audit. It doesn't mean that it has not worked. That's not the point. The issue is you have not made it work. The issue is you started it. For example, I think we're looking at the kind of projects that have even been initiated by the Jubilee administration in the last 7 years. And it's actually covered on page 7 of the Financial Standard today. The curious case of stalled state industrial parks that you still pay for. All right? Here we are talking about this one in Athi River, in Kenania, the Kenania Leather Park. We are talking about the Naivasha Special Economic Zone. We are talking about another one like the Dongo Kundu Special Industrial Park in Mombasa. These are projects.
And the list goes on.
Yep. These are projects that were to be funded. So they are given money in the budget, and then in the supplementary budget, that money is taken away. But it's not taken away to zero. It is taken away to a tune of 200 million shillings is left. So 200 million shillings is going to be spent in that financial year on a project, and this will not move us forward.
No.
So it's about auditing such projects and saying, look, if you want to put money in a project like this, 236 billion shillings allocated to the Kenania Leather Park in Machakos.
How much did they actually remain with?
How much? Yes. And had you even conducted a proper audit of this particular project? Had you done the proper planning and the surveys that are required before you even get into this project?
Usually, by the time a project is planned, when it's budgeted for, the layman's assumption is that it has all due diligence has been conducted.
Applied, yes.
That's the assumption. And we know that that is never the failing that we have in this country. Planning, ensuring that it is presented in a way that can actually work. Not is supposed to work, but can actually work. That we do. But then, the implementation stage seems to be the thing which we never seem to move to.
In some of these projects, and this is according to the Parliamentary Budget Office, for example, this Kenania project, it is because of the planning. One of the main issues that we have was in the planning stage. Came up with this 500-acre project. The construction of the Kenania Leather Park had to be started all over again.
The land was inappropriate.
With drawing up of a revised master plan after heavy rains in 2018 rendered 60% of the land unsuitable.
Well, the same thing happened with the Machakos Industrial Park.
So is this not even at implementation?
But Eric, let me ask
even
that.
before.
Eric, let me ask you a
Studies that did
question.
not take place to make
No.
sure that it was sustainable. Did you not know? Then would you not be able to make any predictions that then the land then would not be sustainable for such projects?
Are we saying they didn't know this was a swamp?
That's what I'm saying.
That's what we are saying.
That's what we're saying exactly.
And I'm
That's a
saying
study
they
that
knew.
should have been done.
I am saying they knew it was a swamp.
So the problem was
Who
even
knew?
before
The
implementation.
planners
then.
knew.
So then the problem
And
was
they
way before
deliberately went ahead with
implementation.
this project so that they can do this and then start all over again.
Thank you, sir.
So it's the merchants, basically, who were just playing this game.
Yes, they knew this was a swamp. It's not that they didn't know. Swamps are known. I mean, it's not as though you can hide a swamp.
And a swamp is not created overnight.
No.
You can't wake up, this place was not a swamp, tomorrow it's a swamp.
A swamp, yes.
It's as much as the naked eye can see, actually.
Yes. Even during the dry season, the vegetation in a swamp will indicate to you with clarity that this is a swamp.
So you didn't conduct feasibility studies, and then you started the project. And this project is given a budgetary allocation. Actually, this project is, first of all, approved at cabinet level, so that then it gets budgetary allocation in a financial year. And then you start a project, you get to a point you realize, oh my goodness, 60% of this.
Eric, there's that bit. They even start the project.
Yes.
It started.
There's money here allocated to the project.
And I think what the realization was not brought forth, this is my own thinking, it rained.
Yes.
And so the swamp went back to factory setting.
Nature told you, oh, wait.
Sorry. This is not what I intended. This one was meant for frogs. Another, yes, botanical creatures now.
So you see, these are 3 projects that we're talking about in the last 7 years.
Yes.
All right? And then we're also talking about a project under the Kibaki administration.
Yes.
So I hear when the World Bank is saying, look at these things and stop. I'm not for look at and stop. I'm saying I am for
revise your thinking.
Revise your thinking. Review, see what needs to be done, rework the plans. But don't just put in money because, for example, in this particular Kinani project, so the budgetary allocation, failure to complete the project as scheduled will lead to delayed returns on investment. This is according to the Parliamentary Budget Office that is raising the red flag and saying the budgetary allocation of 236 million shillings is expected to facilitate completion of the common effluent treatment plant, construction of access roads, as well as preliminaries towards the development of 2 tannery sheds, 3 footwear and leather goods sheds. It's on a 500-acre plot. It's said to have 15 tanneries. We're only talking about 2. So the thing is, you start a project, then you remove money in the next financial year, like the Dongokundu one. In 2020-2021 financial year, the project has been allocated 172.2 million shillings, which is not enough for the project to take off, and it is therefore likely to be delayed even further. And this is because in the 2019-2020 financial year, it had initially been allocated 1.5 billion shillings for the project. It was removed completely through the supplementary budget. And then in this financial year, it's only given 200 million shillings. A project that requires 1.5 billion shillings is allocated 200 million.
So what?
This is basically just a way of saying this 200 million to 10 million.
Manage it, and then you finish how
you know what is the tragedy here is you actually get the impression that all these big projects are actually not intended to. No, let me rephrase. The intention is actually for making money, not for implementation.
Never to complete.
Not to
Never,
complete
ever.
or to raise
So
the
that in
development
every
profile
year
of
it
the
keeps
country.
receiving about 200 million shillings. Is that 200 million shillings comes into this project?
Yeah, that's 10% of the
drop in the ocean.
200 billion that they had budgeted for. So, and then you want to ask yourself, will this project ever be completed? The answer is
Will it
no.
ever finish?
200 billion project and you're giving 200 million shillings a year.
So
When are you going to complete it?
What was it going to do for the local people? For example, now the economy of Mombasa, right? We're talking about the Dongokundu Industrial Park. What is the Dongokundu Industrial Park's likely impact on the economy
of Kenya?
Yes,
Yes, of
just
Kenya.
Mombasa
Okay,
County.
let's start with Mombasa.
And Mombasa and even Kwale.
Dongokundu is actually in Kwale, so it's Mombasa and Kwale. Yes.
So let's look at just those. The kind of impact. We're talking about SGR, business moving, blah, blah, but this could have sorted it. But no. It's given the money. It's that money for the 2019-2020 financial year, not a shilling went into this project.
It reminds you of those development authorities that we set up all over the country. Remember them?
Yes.
They were supposed to spur the sort of activities that we're talking. Not only did they... Thank you. They were not only... This indisciplined saliva choking me when I want to make a serious...
Just coming at that point.
Yes.
Someone has mentioned you.
Yes, there's that little detail that someone is actually...
Talking about you.
Yes.
Now you sit here and say, money is that.
But then it begs the question through all of this then, with all of these projects around the country, from county to county, from town to town. Exen Iraqi told us yesterday when he was in Jacksonville, Mississippi, he was taking a walk and he heard a group of people talking about a road to be named. Not the building of the road, not the construction of anything around it. The naming of the street brought about participation of those in its vicinity. everybody invested in doing this. So there was accountability across the line. These are individuals. There, of course, there you had your ward representation and all of that.
Yep.
But the people had to be involved in this. What stops Kenyans from being involved in these things that we talk about when you know that public money is being spent, when you know that somebody is responsible for a particular thing and that person is not being brought to or held to any kind of account, no questions are asked, but later it's lamentations about, oh my goodness,
What stops you,
200 mi-
Ndu? Just to answer you, because you do not know. That's the point.
So it's lack of knowledge.
When these
that stops you
feasibility
from
studies
asking
were being
questions.
conducted in Kenania, do you think the residents of Kenania were told, let's have a meeting, let's discuss. We want
This
to
one
come
we're
up with a tannery
thinking
project.
of.
Which is what
Is
I'm
it a good idea? Is it a good idea to have 50 tanneries here in this particular 500-acre piece of land? Is this a way to go? The people do not know.
So when that started and was even, let's even say that it went along and the construction began or whatever started, nobody asked any questions. They just had to say, oh, okay, this is nice. This thing is happening here. All right, shall we carry along and move on?
No, we heard it from the government, national level. Oh, we are going to put
And
up a
still,
project here.
again, and then still it was, all right, okay, so this thing is happening. It never finished. It never completed. Still, no questions are being asked. Again, complaining that money has been spent. No questions are being asked. What did they tell us about public participation and say public participation and nobody ever shows up? There's an email in the newspaper, there's something, nobody asks any questions.
People usually show up. This one, I am completely fighting for the people.
They show up.
It is about the government. If the government has intended that you are not going to participate in this public conversation, they will put it on a website. Will you see that website? So if today some information about your neighborhood has been posted on the website of the Housing Ministry, for instance, will you know about it? And then they'll say, well, actually, we had announced this. Even if it's in today's paper, you have looked at today's
so
paper.
then they say that we have announced it and they say, oh, we didn't see it. Then they say, oh, okay, too bad. Then everybody puts their hands in their laps and says, all right, well, that one is a lost cause. Let's just move on.
Yes.
So it just becomes a roller coaster.
If people don't attend these meetings, it's because they do not see the purpose. They have attended in the past. There have been certain results.
Or they've heard from somebody. Because I'm really trying to get to the crux of the matter here.
Yes.
So it's either they've attended and there has been no result, or they've heard from other people who have attended these meetings or whatever, or involved in this public participation or whatever the whole process may be, and they've seen that it has not yielded any positive results. Because it's interesting, because Stephen sent in a comment, the previous conversation, and he said, you know what, all this political hullabaloo will end when you and me hold a leader to account for what he or she has promised or is promising, his or her wealth and agenda in terms of what they have for Kenyans. We need to move beyond being excited by campaign goodies and tribe and who must be in power.
Yes.
Across board,
and,
right?
And
so now my
the reason
question
why
is
we
to
have
Kenyans,
it in the
my
constitution
question
is
to
that
Kenyans.
the
My question
onus
to
is
Kenyans.
on the leaders
Even
to
if you
initiate.
raise your voice, my question still remains the
Yes,
same.
and I'm answering this
Why?
question.
I've not asked it yet. So how are you answering
See, it's
it?
the same one you're asking.
Okay, what's the question? Do you see now?
Why is it that when you do not participate in the public participation forum,
How is it that Kenyans are going to hold their leaders to account? How is it that when you come up with a project, these projects that we talk about that have stalled, that have been said stop, how is it that Kenyans will now hold their leaders to account?
Now, can I answer the question?
That one.
The reason why it's in the constitution, the issue of public participation, is for that, holding leaders to account. And the onus starts with those in leadership positions to initiate the process of public participation, and then the citizens participate in public participation. Once that has happened, then the citizens are aware about this project. Then they will continue holding the leaders to account about that particular
But
project.
you just said
Let's
that
take
they
a break.
do that.
Take a look
they
at
do
whether
that for the purposes of people to not participate. You've just
the
said it.
leadership, yes, and that's where now I'm saying the problem comes from that. It starts from that point, the leadership. If the leadership does not do it, does not initiate proper public participation, it's not going to happen in the best interest. Those people in Jacksonville, right? They are not the ones who decided. There was leadership that said there's a proposal to rename a road. Can we participate in this? Can we discuss? It starts from leader, people participate, people give their feedback, people hold the government to account going forward. Let's take a break, take a look at the weather, and then you come back and have this conversation. I'll give you the example of something that I actually heard happening in one of the counties in the country.
Spice FM, Nakuru.
Everything nice, alright.
Spice up your life.
Okay, let's take a look into
The
Nairobi,
weather
where the sun
with-
seems to be peeking through those clouds just a little bit, though. Mostly cloudy conditions are going to continue throughout most of the day. Highs of 25 and lows of 13. It's 17 degrees and partly cloudy in Nyeri, going to highs of 23 and lows of 13. Mostly sunny conditions in Nakuru at 18, going to a high of 24. And it's sunny in Eldoret at 17. It's not going to last too long, though. There are thunderstorms in the forecast, with highs of 21 and lows of 11. It's mostly sunny in Kisumu, highs of 28. And in Kakamega, 21 degrees and mostly sunny. It'll be a rainy afternoon, though. Highs of 26 and lows of 15. Partly cloudy in Mombasa at 27, going to highs of 29. It'll go to highs of 29 in Malindi as well, lows of 24, currently at 27 degrees and partly cloudy. It's partly cloudy in Kampala, highs of 27 and lows of 19. It's partly cloudy in Dar es Salaam as well, surprise, surprise. We're going to see some rains later, though. Highs of 30 and lows of 22, with the foggy patches making their debut here and there. It's mostly sunny and warming up quite significantly in Joburg this morning. Highs of 24 and lows of 13, currently at 17 degrees. Showers continue in Lagos at 28, and that'll be the high for today, coming down to lows of 24. Take a look into London, where it's hazy still at 16, highs of 29 and lows of 16. In Beijing, the rains continue at 21, highs of 22 and lows of 14. Paris, it is still sunny, and it will continue this way. You get all hot and bothered. Highs till 34 today, and lows of 18. And finally, in New York, around about 2 a.m. this morning, it's clear skies all through. And when the sun does come up, it'll go to highs of 22 and lows of 14.
Spice up your life. Mature, intelligent talk every morning. Spice up yourself. Mornings done right. 94.4 Spice FM, Nairobi.
5 minutes after 9. So I'll give you this example. I had a conversation with somebody who participated in a program. The government of Makueni County had received some money from a donor organization. And they had, of course, put in a proposal, we'd like to do 1, 2, 3 things for the people of Makueni, especially having a project around Water Township. This is the headquarters of Makueni County. The county executive, led by the governor, their thinking was what people need here is, street lights and proper lighting for nighttime operations. But they said, you know what, we already have that structure going all the way to the village level, to local level, where people participate, and they are the ones who decide what project they want. So they called in the people and they said, this is about the amount of money that we have received. These are the donors, they're here. And what would you like to do with this? And unanimously, the people said, we want you to improve our market. Lights? Nope.
Not our problem.
We want you to improve this market. What do we want? We want bigger stalls. We want better sanitary facilities around here. We want proper drainage system. We want water harvesting. We want better tanks so that we can have more running water around the market. Once we have finished that, then we shall discuss about lighting. Our immediate need is this. And that's what the money was dedicated to. People were happy. And now they could actually demand accountability and say, we wanted a market. We wanted our stalls to be bigger. Is that what you have implemented? So see, when the participation happens, then it's possible for you to hold that government to account. If the government had come and started putting up the lights, you'd be talking later and saying, but they did lights, so I don't even know how much they had. I can't say, that, I want a market. We'll keep saying, we want a market. But you'll never be able to, you will be able to raise your voice, but the money will have already been spent on lighting.
Lights are nice, yes, but it wasn't a priority.
It wasn't our priority at the point.
You see, when you have the sort of structure Eric is speaking of, it means you can even tell the community, we want to come and have this discussion. This is what we want to talk about.
Yes.
This is what we have, and this is what we'd like to do. But we want you to tell us what you think, what you consider to be a priority. See, then you have a discussion because you already know what it is you want to talk about. In the absence of that, how are you going to have a discussion? Now, in many cases where you find projects that in and of themselves are good seem to be facing what you call headwinds, like I'm reading here on page 25 of the Star, 6 billion Mombasa Buxton project faces headwinds. And if I read what is being said by the tenants, they're talking about the cost of those houses. They said it's beyond their reach. They're saying the length of time that is being given. They say some of them are at an age where they will not be able to fulfill those obligations. Now, for every issue that has been brought up, if indeed this matter had been brought before them long before the issue of this is what we want to do, all these discussions would have been had, yes. And an understanding of sorts would have been arrived at, so the whole thing would have been, should we say, should have moved on with infinitely less headwind.
On paper, these things are hardwired in law.
Yes.
That you're required to actually start a conversation. Even CDF is a people-driven fund.
Yes.
That's why the MP is only a patron, and then the people participate in electing the members of the CDF committee. Here, it's hardwired in law. So that the people's representatives are the ones who are actually in charge of this 100 million shillings that has come to the constituency to know what is our priority project. Hardwired in law. With that, it's very possible for them to say, but what we wanted is this road to be redone. What we wanted is a new block of classrooms in this primary school. What we wanted is a new pit latrines, if that's what they wanted. And then they'd be able to follow up with that. It's hardwired, but it is tinkered with by those in leadership.
I personally, you are talking about Makwini. I know of one member of parliament who I actually witnessed. Not I sat there and witnessed him, but I saw the results of this process. He was a gentleman by the name of Honorable Nyamunga. He was MP. You've heard me mention this before because I was thoroughly impressed. He was MP for Nyando. In those days, there were councillors. We didn't have MCS then. But he would do something similar. They would be told of the amount of money they have. If there were allocations, they were told. They had time to go and plan and determine what projects they wanted in their wards and the time in which. So his job was to come and determine, this is the sort of money that was given for this. Has it been done as it was done? Now, it is this same person during whose tenure this perennial problem of the Nyando flooding got to a point where it was unheard of. And all they did was they looked for waterways and dredged them. As in, they gave the rainwater an avenue to follow. So it didn't have to sit on land. Now, again, he came from there, that's why he's the MP, but he involved people. When it came to the roads that traversed the constituency, he used as much manual labor as he possibly could and as many as he could, resources that were found locally. Now, all I'm saying is, this is someone who actually understood the letter and the spirit of what was meant by public participation. And you saw the changes.
Yeah.
Even if you didn't want to, you saw it.
You could completely see. I mean, you can't avoid that.
Yes. And people would talk about it, and when you went there, you would actually see it. A road that was problematic when you trained, you suddenly realized it's possible. And you know why? They had again charted a path for the water to pass on the side of the road. There was maram. It had been compacted on it. Suddenly, a problem that was clearly a problem that had lasted for a long time ceased to be. So, indeed, yes, you're right. When public participation is actually understood and taken as it should, many of the problems that arise in this community need not have arisen in the first place.
So the problem then is with the leaders and a lack of comprehension of what public participation is
No.
supposed to be?
They know what it is. It's what they want to do and what they think suits them.
Yeah.
Or they do know what
I
it
guess
means.
then
So if it is to, when you say it's to be understood then by whom? Because you said if public participation is properly understood by whom?
Even that so-called public now understand what it is. And that is why you have that issue, because you tell them until you know, excuse me.
If they have experienced it before.
Yes.
For example, I do not expect that the traders in Wote market would be able to live without public participation.
No.
They have experienced it once, and this is what they expect of their government. Any governor who comes after Kivuda Kibwana,
they'll be held accountable.
Whichever government comes in, whatever you want to do here, have you asked us first? You're creating a new market just 2 kilometers from this one. Why?
Why do we need a second market?
Why do we need a second market? Is that our priority? Did you come to ask before you do this? The citizens that have not participated, have not experienced public participation, then will not also be able, which now actually brings us to the point that you're asking, including Stephen on Twitter. Those that have not experienced public participation then will not actually be able to hold the government to account. You'll see a project coming up because you know that the leaders come and they say, this is what we have decided to do. You'll go with that. But if you see the experience, either in your area or elsewhere, of what is happening when people are involved, you will demand more involvement. 27 minutes to 10. Let's take another break and take a look at traffic. And then this conversation continues. We also want to want the phone line 0719 012 600, right? So 0719 012 600. You can join the conversation. Also, join the conversation on our social media handles, Spice FM KE, YouTube, Facebook, and Instagram. Good morning.
Spice FM, Nakuru. Classic soul, R&B, smooth jazz, neo soul, and nostalgic ballads.
Make some noise. Yeah.
You're listening to Spice FM. Traffic.
Okay, looking a little bit better across the city. Coming off Mombasa Road, still going to give you a little bit of a hiccup as you approach the Nyeri Stadium roundabout, but then going towards Uhuru Highway and then out towards Westlands, it should not be too bad now. Mombasa Road, and then coming into the city from Thika Road as well, looking much better, guys. I think we're officially out of traffic hour, but there'll be some pockets here and there. Again, tomorrow, Lunga Lunga Road, Likoni Road, and then feeding into Jogo Road will be closed off for some road construction. So plan ahead of time. Use alternate routes where you can. Let us know what you see. Spice FM KE, that's how you can reach us on Twitter. And we'll see how it goes.
Spice FM. Spice up your life. Mature, intelligent talk every morning. Spice up yourself. Mornings done right. 94.4 Spice FM.
19012600. Just back to that question that you asked, Ndu. Then how do we, as citizens, participate?
How do you participate? Do you make noise? Do you go sit in Brazza and shout? What?
No.
What? But something clear. It's clear that something needs to happen. It's clear that other things that would have been employed in the past are working in some cases. But you know what? They're case studies because they're peculiar. The normal is that they don't work. The abnormal or the peculiar is when they do work. The one case that you've been able to talk about, it should be that it is replicated across the country. But obviously, because of human intervention, it doesn't happen. And it is absolutely necessary to get things going, right? Properly, to get things going in the right way. So that, again, you don't have these lamentations of billions having been spent where they shouldn't have been, or non-spend of money where it should have been spent. And then development profile, tanked, out the window. It doesn't happen. So the peculiar is that public participation happens and that residents are happy. Imagine, that's the peculiar. Whereas the normal should be that people are getting involved in the processes that happen in their societies and communities, then, adding on to the national profile.
And to imagine
doesn't
that's
happen.
the entire the principle of good governance. Even in the Constitution, principles of good governance usually involve the people. The entire principle of devolution is so that you can allow the people, give the people more power and more say in what affects them in determining their own lives. This is all like contained in all our laws, starting from the Supreme Law to any act of Parliament, comes in with a level of public participation. And public participation is not for information's sake.
No.
It is for consultation,
and for decision making. Yes.
and for follow-up.
Yes.
So it is an important
Yes, it is.
role.
Yes.
Yes, it is.
And yet, it doesn't happen in the manner in which it was envisioned and designed. Doesn't happen.
And believe me, it doesn't end with that big community meeting. No, it continues. Because even if it's a project, it'll come up with issues that people had perhaps never before encountered.
Yeah.
There'll be need for discussions.
Yeah.
There'll be matters that arise which have nothing to do with the project. You see, communities normally discuss things that concern them. For instance, if there's been cattle rustling in an area, the community will meet, they will talk. They will form a group that will go after their cattle. Meaning, if they have a problem like, say, flooding, again, it's unfortunate that for the longest time, people gather together to sort out problems that had befallen the community. Okay? Now, public participation doesn't envisage that. It envisages the idea of the community understanding that the future is actually in their hands and that they have a role to play in it. And they have this opportunity to not only discuss it, but to determine what it is it should be.
But it's not happening.
No. That doesn't happen as often as we'd like it to.
It's not happening.
No.
So this is the thing. What then needs to happen for it to happen? Or at least for a push for people to be aware that we know what the rights are and we know that it should be happening.
Let me tell you, this one I think is overused. We keep talking about ensuring that people are sensitized or educated sufficiently. The truth of the matter is this, even when you tell people about their rights, there's a question that arises. Do they actually believe you? They've heard you, but do they believe you? Because those words have to be aligned with the reality that they live.
Right, and then do they have enough gumption to say, even as you've told me that, that's great, but the things that I'm faced with right now is beyond... I can't imagine that I'm going to sit down and talk about a monument to be erected or industrial park to be erected. Yes, it could provide jobs for odd 2,000 people in a community, but faced with my my reality, my contribution would not make much of a difference, right? Those are the things that come into play that stop people then from participating or stop from any kind of agitation. And I'm saying that needs to be reversed.
You know what's coming to mind is a phrase that Wanjiru Gikonyo uses every so often, that in this country we live despite the government. Because I'm thinking it actually does translate to that the view we have of government is another entity altogether that is not even in this
Separate
village.
from reality.
It is not separate from reality. It's there. It's in reality, but
It has nothing to do with us.
It has nothing to do with us. It lives there. It makes its own decisions. It does the thing that it wants to do while we do the things that we need to do. Because go to any community, church programs are public. There's serious public participation. We want to expand this church. We want to build a new social hall. All those decisions are not made by the church leadership. They're actually made by the congregants of that church. We talk about cattle dips and such. At the local level, there's serious community participation.
And it's been there for a long time, even before the Constitution.
Long, on things that matter to them. But then when it comes to this external thing called government and public participation, that's where the question comes in, whether they believe you that they have a role to play in that other entity's operations, because they believe those are the operations of that entity called government. These operations here, they will not allow the construction of a cattle dip without meetings. People will not allow the construction or the expansion of a church without meeting. They will not. They will kick out the leadership of that church. They will kick out the pastor. How dare you come up with this? People will not allow the construction of a new stream of classrooms in a local school without meetings. Look at what was happening yesterday with the story that we read yesterday from Meru. Just because the management of a school decided that they want to sell off some
They want their share.
the bulls, people said, no. We must be involved in that decision. And if you're not involving it, then we're going to eat these bulls. Right? So people already know that. Now, it's now, how do we bridge that gap so that we all feel that that entity called government is not that entity.
That's it.
It is this entity. That whatever is happening, when roads are being built, it is not the job of Mheshimiwa, because that is Mheshimiwa so-and-so from MCA to MP.
But that you're all
No,
involved
it
in the
is
process.
us. It is for us to decide what we want to do. Is it the road that is most important to us now, or is it security?
You know, look at the role of leadership. When you have a leader who understands and also not just encourages but ensures that these small little entities actually exist and function. You see, with the time, that absence of confidence is actually pushed aside. And you have a situation where somebody actually genuinely believes that what they have to say matters. You know, we used to have public or should we say community-built schools called Harambee schools. You can't build a Harambee school without public participation.
Yeah.
You can't.
You cannot.
You couldn't. Now,
Well, it starts from the fact that the people are the ones who are going to contribute
yes,
this money. So,
Right. So they
Exactly.
best be involved.
but they only contribute because they know it is in their interest.
yep.
Now, if you consider this, because the churches that we speak of are never built by the government, they're built by the local communities. So, again, as you correctly put it, this public participation is something that is actually part and parcel of the way we live and has been for the longest time. But this one of Serikali and us, that particular divide is what seems, with time, instead of shortening, it's what seems to be increasing.
Read that comment by Daniel Ondiere.
Public participation is impossible in a country where people are crazy about their leaders, hero worship. Take an example of the Constitution where people refused to read it because the Enigma had read it for them.
Very true. The Enigma read it for them, but what about the others? Did they read it when they had, even though they had no one to read it for them?
They just followed.
Precisely. They all did the same
Their
thing.
enigmas did not say, I have read it for you. But they
They just said
they
the Enigma
assumed it.
has read it, so that's fine.
Like now, there's a clamor to have the BBI out in the public.
Yep.
At some point, it will be. How many people will read it? They'll wait to be told what it says.
Yep.
And then they'll pick up the snippets which suits them.
Even now, there are people who are for and those who are against the BBI.
Oh, yes,
They
they
had
are.
not even seen the first report.
But they've taken a stand.
They have taken a
On this
stand.
matter that they have, on this document they haven't read
Yes.
or haven't seen.
So actually, I agree with what Daniel is saying. It's because we assume that this leader, because CT, you are our leader, whatever you want to do with that money,
That's it.
you do it.
That's it.
It'll be for our
You know what's
benefit.
the underlying factor here is that you will look after our interest.
Yeah.
And
It's a trust. It's some level of trust that the leaders do not really internalize and understand that you're not just a leader. You've been bestowed upon a serious level of trust by the people.
Yes.
They have told you, look, you go and take care of our interests.
Yes.
Come and tell us what, if you need our support, come and ask it of us. We will give it
But
to
we
you.
leave this in your hands.
But we leave this in your hands. You go ahead and do it. But then they take that up and you decide, you know what I need to do is for these people to know that I'm doing something on their behalf. I'm going to come up with this humongous project that they don't need. On the road to Nakuru, past this, this area called Sokomjinga,
Yes, I know it.
right?
Where they sell
Sokomjinga, where they
vegetables.
sell vegetables.
They sell you vegetables which you may not even want.
Yes.
Yes.
And it's very muddy around there
It's
throughout the year.
Yes, it is.
200 meters from this point, there's a market. A very well done modern market.
That is up ahead before you come to that
before you get to flyover.
Yes.
There is a market
On the left.
on the left. You'd expect that the people at Sokomjinga are the ones who would move to that market. That market is empty. Tells you something. Were the people involved
No.
in the construction of that
the
market?
market, they'd rather be on the side of the road.
Yeah. You didn't consider us. You did not consider what we need. All right? There's a reason why we are here. It's muddy, it's all, but there's a reason why we're here. You're moving us from here to take us there. There are very many considerations.
That is actually
when I look at that, I always say this is an example of failed public participation. Because there is absolutely no way you can tell me that a market with roof, with all and people would rather be out there in Kimende in the middle of the night at 3 a.m., cold and it's rainy,
It's cold. That place is cold.
and they're not moving to that
That
market.
place is cold.
Tells you something.
Because it's at that point, you're still climbing, so it's high. Before you start descending into the Rift Valley, it's cold.
Yeah.
And yet, if you're on that Nyeri road again, you will come across, just after Nyeri, the very same thing that you're saying, where there is a market on the side of the road. There's actually a market. And the same thing, people will come and sell things to you. But there is a market, you
There's
can
a
see
market.
it. It's some 20 meters away, you can actually see it.
Yep.
It's clear somebody thought it through.
Yep. Because they're using that market. They're using the facility that has been put up there.
Yes.
You know?
Yes.
Public participation must have happened. There must have been involvement of what do you guys want. We want. So you guys, you are traders. You're market traders, right? What is your most immediate need, and how can we meet that need? You may find that thing on Sokumjinga is the stalls are so small that any ordinary trader
They look at it and they realize this is a waste.
think
And I'm going to be paying for this space which I don't need.
It can't serve my interest at all. Then how do we ensure that people participate in these conversations?
You know, this one goes back to that same old story of the leadership. If you have a leader who means well, or at least says they do, but zero vision, it won't happen. Because why I mentioned the word vision and zero next to it is in the absence of a clear vision of the future, the decisions that are made will serve only short-term interests. It will not be something that can carry over. And you then wonder, why do you find that there's some people who just keep getting re-elected? Because now those are people who've understood it. And so they resonate with the people. And the people would rather say, no. Let so-and-so continue.
Let them be there.
Let this person be there. We've understood and we can see he means well for us.
I think all of this is quite layered, though, even as we look at it. There's certain things that should have been in place, like a domino effect. If you have a development of country, county, community, in the way it's supposed to be done, if you have funds being used well and managed properly, something like public participation would not be such an issue. It really wouldn't be such an issue. If things were being done in the manner in which they were supposed to be done, then it would be clear in the minds of people, it would be clear in the minds of those vested in communities that this is actually supposed to happen. But because you started wrong from the very beginning, then you want to bring in public participation as kind of just fit it in somewhere. It can't, it won't work.
To tick the box.
Yeah, just say, okay, no, you can't. It's something that would come along with the flow of things.
Yeah. Shall
And
we
if
go to
that
the
flow
phone
is
lines?
not happening,
Yes, let's go to the phone lines.
Let's hear from Lydia in Parklands. Good morning, Lydia.
Yes. Good morning, Spice FM. You spoke so well. I kept listening every minute. You keep our ears busy while we do other things as well. This is why I say all media should keep on telling us things like how you do. And you talked about the market and nobody's going there. That is, the market is built for them to rob you left, right, and center. Pay for this, pay for that, pay for this license, pay for this levy. That is why they build the market to make you bankrupt. This is how they operate. When the post-election violence government came, President Kibaki alone made the government small with 14 ministries. The post-election violence came and made it a bloated government. 20,000 shilling was the trade license. Even Skidero said he wants 35,000 shilling trade license. Now that is 75% increase on your pocket. You are the honest hard worker, and you can't count that 35,000 shillings trade license to pay. But yet you have to pay for it. The next year he says he wants 4,500 more that you should pay for fire. The fire stations are a mess since even that 4,500 shillings is paid. There's no system. Schools were built by the Catholic churches. They are grabbed. The government is the owner of the church. I mean the schools.
Schools.
Just a nuisance.
True.
Thank you, Spice
Thank you.
FM, for your good work.
Thank you very much, Lydia. 0719-012-600. What are your thoughts on this? How can we as citizens take over this public participation so we make sure that it happens when it should happen and how it should happen?
You know, this story of blaming the leadership, it's a tired story. They will be who they are. They will do what they do. I'll be talking more about this in the course of this week. But this particular tribe of individuals that we call leaders and the tribal norms that they feel leadership bestows upon them does not take into account the interest of the person they're supposed to represent or lead. And the sooner we realize this, the better. And that's where when Jiro Gikonyo's view comes in. I think the public will serve themselves well if they understand that they need to plan and think for themselves what ought to be done and what's the best course. Yes. Let the government find them on their way to where they were going.
Yeah.
But to wait.
We'll be wasting ourselves.
No, absolutely. Absolutely. In fact, when you sit, you may think that you're in one position or in one place. You'll likely be moving backwards without even realizing you're moving backwards.
You remind me of a story in southwestern Nigeria, the city of Benin in Edo State. And the armed robbery in a particular community was really becoming very bad. And the people kept calling on the government, you need to do something about this. Set up security posts, have your patrols running. Nothing happened. So the people said, okay, not happening. We will become the community vigilante. And they began to smoke robbers, literally smoke them, kill them. Until the government said, hold on, wait a minute. You can't have this wanton killing of these people.
Can't take the law in your own
You can't
hands.
do this. So they said, well, we asked you, and nothing is happening. So you had people in communities sitting outside, keeping vigil of their houses to make sure they were safe. Until now, you have the government in conjunction with community vigilance to make sure that neighborhoods are kept safe. So here, living in spite of your government, saying we're going to do something about this if you don't.
Elijah in Nairobi, good morning.
Morning, how are you?
Very well,
Fine,
thank you.
Yeah, so there's this saying that when diplomacy fails, violence prevails.
Yeah, exactly.
And public participation is an attempt at government diplomacy with the citizens it allegedly serves. But when it sabotages that process, then what it's doing is courting violence from the citizenry. So even the mob justice that you're just citing, that is violence.
Yeah.
Because due process is diplomacy.
Yeah.
And if you take that and extrapolate it to whatever else, you'll find situations where I think there were some videos circulating on social media once where there were some touts who were fist fighting with police.
Yes.
And guys were cheering them. That just tells you that there's a fracture in our diplomacy failed.
Yeah.
So the policeman is no longer respected. The policeman is the closest person to the society vis-a-vis the executive.
Yeah.
Because the police are everywhere.
Yeah.
But if you see a situation where citizens look at them at best as thieves, you ask yourself, usiku unataka kukutana na polisi ama
jambazi?
Then you say at least jambazi anaweza kakuachia vitu mbili tatu akupatie fare ya kuenda nyumbani. That ethos in the society is a problem. The problem also is that the people who should be promoting the diplomacy are so busy eating. And then when we try to get true diplomacy, when you look at the Kriegler reports, you look at the TJRC, they shelve them.
Yep.
And that foments a society that is ripening itself for violence. Yeah.
Thank you very much, Elijah. Those are very, very, very valid points. 0719012600. Abraham at Mr. Abraham on Twitter says, some have, I think there have been some attempt of participating for the longest time in social halls and even under a tree barazas. But it's all the leadership that has been failing the people. All we have are crooks and misleaders, right from State House to the county assemblies. Really deplorable. Public educator says social accountability and social audit tools that can be used to cross-check government projects. Public participation is a powerful tool. Remember Okoa Kiambu that brought the fall of Waitito.
Yes.
So, as we conclude the conversation,
this issue of public participation, it's a discussion that will not end because there's never a time when you actually don't need public participation. Even at a family level, your children grow up, you realize you just can't go around making decisions without talking to them about it. Because if it involves a family or, for instance, something as simple as a trip, they'll tell you they're not going on that trip.
Yep.
And why? You didn't include them in that particular decision-making process. Because they know that they are part and parcel of that family.
Yeah.
Yes. So you can't run away from something that is really part and parcel of our lives long before it became part of our constitution.
Right.
The constitution just gave it a new breath of life, but it has always been there. Yes.
True.
Well, it's if, like I said, you have to go back and look at the building blocks. If the building blocks, you used half a block as opposed to using a full block, then it would only explain why somewhere along the chain you have a kink. It doesn't make sense that you want to throw it in there as something to do. All right, we need to make sure that people are involved. Throw in there. No, it's because the processes from the very beginning were skewed. And if you are doing things the right way, if you are managing public funds the right way, if you are making sure that this development infrastructure that you're talking about is established the right way, public participation is just a part of the entire process.
Indeed it is. CT, conclude with today's proverb.
The fight of a grasshopper is the joy of a crow. You see, in this case, we are not talking about fighting, but we're talking about lack of cohesion, which is what fighting does. And a leader who oversees the welfare of people who cannot get their acts together has a very easy time. Because now the divide and rule comes into play, and nothing ever gets done that is in the interest of the people.
Indeed. Strong and powerful words. Thank you very much for tuning into the Situation Room today. Join us again tomorrow morning. Eric Latif, Nduoko, and CT Muga. Between now and 3 o'clock, uninterrupted music, sugar and spice, and everything nice. And then Monique will be here to take you home on Spice Drive from 3 to 7. And then after that, the adults in the room, Eric, Emmanuel, and Barbara. 7 to 10. Good morning. It's now 10 a.m.